Good morning and welcome to a special edition of the Flying with Ryan show. On this interview edition, I sit down with Mr. Aaron Love, who is a former Air Force PJ and who I'd like to consider one of the leading experts on the Vegas shooting. He lives in Vegas. He has a special affinity to the town and to this tragic event. We do talk about a lot of things that are all speculation, so we don't come to any conclusions. Everything in here is still alleged, as there's not an official narrative that any one of us can actually trust. So I really had a fun time talking with him and considered him a new friend. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Aaron Love. And for all of you guys out there that are pilots and non-pilots, I really hope that you enjoy these episodes. There will be more coming down the pipeline. I've got a few things in the works to talk to some aircraft mechanics, some aircraft mechanic NIAs. So we're going to be doing a wide range of content. I'm really just trying to meet new friends that I consider knowledgeable in their field. So please, if you enjoy these episodes, please consider joining our Twitch stream channel. Rate, review, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and welcome to the show.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, my name's Aaron Love. So I'm actually from Northeast Ohio. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, and right around September 11th, 2001, at the time we didn't know a whole lot of what was going on. So talking about conspiracies, we know a lot more about 9/11 now than we did back then. But as a 21-year-old dude that was kind of looking for a purpose in life, I just decided that I was going to go into the Air Force and I was going to try to do something impossible. I came from a family that was very patriotic. Didn't really have that many military folks in my family, so I didn't really know what I was getting into. But I heard about this job. It's called pararescue. Basically, the DoD has a single force that they train, equip, and deploy in order to do personnel recovery, right? So if a pilot gets shot down, if somebody gets hurt behind enemy lines, if there's no other way to get to them, they've got to have teams of people to send to get those folks. And pararescuemen, or PJs in the Air Force, it's a retronym, right? They call us PJs. It doesn't mean anything anymore. When we were first sort of like way back in the day, when you would fly on an aircraft, pararescuemen were written on the flight form as PJ. They would say it used to be pararescue jumper, right? So that's how they would write it. They'd say, "Hey, we got the PJs in the back," because it's a flight form, which I'm sure you understand, but they
Sure.
abbreviate all the crew positions. So it's actually a retronym. So we kept the name PJ, like colloquially we're called PJs in the Air Force, but it doesn't actually mean anything anymore. The title is called pararescueman. But it was super hard, and my tale is a cautionary tale. It took me 4 separate selection teams over 5 years in order to finally pass selection and then go into the pipeline. It's about a 2-year pipeline. It took me every bit of 2 years to get fully qualified, and then from there, I went through 5 deployments in GWOT, ranging from positions such as team member all the way through senior enlisted leader of a squadron. So I retired as an E8. It's a senior master sergeant in the United States Air Force in the beginning of 2024. So I retired about then. I'll pause there for questions. I just went through 24
Yeah,
years
no, so
of
the
a career.
selection process, tell me how you get into that.
Well, that's pretty easy. We run 5 selections a year. You have to pass a very basic fitness test. It's called the initial fitness test. When I took it, it was called the physical abilities and stamina test, or the PAST. Now it's called the IFT. But it's super simple, man. We set the bar purposely pretty low because we want to have a huge swath of people. We're actually one of the only services that take people directly off the street in order to allow people to go to selection, is essentially what I'm saying. A lot of the other services, Army Green Berets, for a long time, they wouldn't let you come in off the street. You had to be in the Army for a little bit and then cross train over. SEALs, the Buds dudes, started letting folks in after we did, directly off the street. You used to have to be in the Navy for a little bit. The other services do the same. But we'll basically take, if you're a 17-year-old that has your parents sign you up and you can pass that IFT, we'll take all comers. There's a 91% attrition rate. It's heavily focused on the water and the pool. That's what gets almost everybody. and you're not really likely to make it through. Only 9% of the people that actually try succeed all the way through to the pipeline. That held true for my class. I think we started with 135 people. We had the one of the highest graduating classes of all time. So I think the
Really?
record is like 33 people to graduate in that class. We actually had 29 people graduate, but out of that 29, only 13 people ended up graduating the pipeline and putting a beret on their head at the end of it. So it was super tough. I failed the first time I actually quit. I had injured myself on team one, and then on team two, we were pretty deep in the process. And I just lost focus. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So then I paid a penalty. I did another Air Force job. I was still working in the flying world. I was an aerospace physiology technician. Basically, what we did is we maintained oxygen equipment and then flew with teams over a certain altitude. As you know, hypoxia when you fly is a big deal.
Sure.
The Air Force flies really high, and we have folks on board those aircraft that make sure that those dudes, if it's bigger than like a fighter aircraft with two people on it, obviously there's not some dude like hanging off the wing,
Right, right.
keeping him safe.
So, what's your max altitude you've been to?
So I've jumped to 25,000 feet.
Whoa,
I mean,
okay.
yeah. I mean, I've been on other military aircraft that have obviously flown at, 20,000, 30,000 feet and stuff, but you can jump without a waiver at 25,000 feet. You can go all the way up to 24.9 MSL. And if you get a waiver, you can jump. I've had friends that have clacked off like 30,000 foot jumps. It's pretty cool.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
and what kind of airplanes were you guys on?
So we were assigned to various, right? Like when you say pararescueman, you're usually attaching that. It's called the rescue triad. So we have a fixed wing aircraft, which is your C-130, and they have the C-130J now, which is a little bit bigger. The C-130, the HH-60 aircraft, so that's a Black Hawk frame. The UH-60 airframe has a bunch of different variants, and the Air Force has their own variants for that called the Pave Hawk. Or the Pave Low used to be the 53. It's pretty cool. But I've flown like we're basically assigned and sorry to wrap that up. The rescue triad, typically when you talk about pararescuemen or combat rescue officers, which are the officer component that make up the PR force in the Air Force, you typically fly on C-130s and HH-60s, which are the rescue aircraft. Like those three things are assigned to rescue squadrons, right? You got the people that do the rescues and then the two vehicles that take them to the rescues. But we flew on everything. I've flown on everything from Mi-17s to gunships to everything in the inventory. We're specifically assigned as a various crew member, which is pretty weird, but that means you can fly on whatever you want. If it flies, I've flown with the Army, I've flown with the Navy, I've flown with international soft forces, I've flown with the Icelandic Coast Guard. I've worked on a bunch of different aircraft in my career.
Sure. And a little bit about how I found you. I was listening to I think Came with Fire podcast.
Yeah, yeah, good guy. I love those
And
dudes.
oh yeah, absolutely. And you guys were talking about something that's been coming in my algorithm more and more and more, and that's the Vegas shooting.
Right.
Um, and we'll get down that rabbit hole a little bit there. But how did you first get into the? I mean, I don't want to call it the conspiracy realm, obviously, but how
You're
did you get
allowed
into
to.
just
Yeah.
doing this? All right, perfect. Then just doing this, going down and searching these rabbit holes. Was there like something that when you were in the forces, you realized that people weren't telling the truth, or that things aren't really what it seemed? Kind of walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, I wish there was a single event, but it was really just, as you get a little bit older and you start widening that aperture up and you start putting two and two together. Like, I remember one of the first times, one of the first real, like, really intensive training events I did. There's a way to upgrade because we have team positions for everything, and there's constantly an upgrade that happens, especially in the special operations community. You're constantly training and getting new skills, right? Whether that's becoming a jump master, whether that's becoming a dive supervisor, whether that's becoming a team leader, whatever. So on my first trip out to Nellis, which is in Las Vegas, it's where I live now. I retired in Las Vegas. So I was
Okay.
working over the 321st Special Tactics Squadron in England. But as I came over and I was ready for that next step to element leader, so it goes team member and then element leader, which means I can manage a two ship of HH-60s and the teams associated with it. I can be the enlisted leader there. That's what element leader means. I can run my own missions essentially.
Okay.
Um, so as I was going through that training event, I just remember getting these range briefings, and they're like, "Hey guys, range 41, range 44, everybody knows they're off limits. You don't talk about them. You had to sign NDAs and whatever else." Well, range 41 and range 44 are the two rangers that cover the expanse of Groom Lake. And you're like,
Oh, really?
you're like, oh yeah, and they're hard no fly zones. Like it does not matter when there's a certain range control. I don't even know if I can say the name here on this podcast or on this show. There's a certain range control that if he ever comes across and he tells you to change your flight, you don't ask why, you just do it. And if you don't, they'll end your career over it. And there's no like, hey, we're training, like, hey, whatever. If they call you and you're on a range, it's like adjacent to range 41 or range 44, and they're like, hey, you guys got to get off the range. You've got like 10 minutes to make that happen, and you get your happy ass out of there. So it's just one of those things. As you get a little bit older, you're like, man, I understand that there's a whole world, and especially in the special operations world, I maintained a TS SCI clearance, so a top secret, secret compartmentalized information. Everything is compartmentalized, right? Like there
Right.
were entire programs that you would have to get read into, and I've been read into a bunch of programs in my life and read out of those programs. But it's like when you get read in, the door opens to this entire tranche of information that you had no idea about. And then you get access to certain drives or certain stuff. And to be honest with you, it just kind of opens your eyes. There is a world of information that exists out there that you're just not privy to. And that's the same everywhere. That's not just the military, that's politics and that's culture and that's some of these other, different conspiracies. Once you start looking at this information, once you see behind the curtain and you realize that the guy is just a guy and not a wizard, there's really no going back, and I'll use the completely trope example of the red pill and the blue pill. Like once you take the red pill and you realize that the matrix is what the matrix is, and there's a world of things that you don't know, all that stuff just starts snowballing. You know what I mean?
Sure,
Like,
sure, absolutely.
I
I mean,
served my entire career in GWAT, right? So I was in GWAT, and man, I went to Iraq. Like I went to Iraq in 2009. Like we went to Iraq on weapons of mass destruction, and that was bullshit. You know what I
oh
mean?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, so okay, so not one certain event. I guess for like me and my experience, I started, 9/11's kind of a big deal for me.
Sure.
My father was in the military for a really long time, but way before I was born. He
Hmm.
was a lot older when I was born, and like right around September 11th, we were sitting there and we were talking, and kind of some of what he used to do was investigate aircraft accidents. Um, and he, had a bunch of questions, and then like out of the blue, had friends that would call him and tell him, "Listen, whatever you're watching on the news, whatever you're seeing, whatever is going on, it is not what it seems."
Right.
And so, pretty much ever since then, I've kind of been like, I've had this in the back of my mind. Was it's okay. It's like let's look at things from a different perspective. And
Mhm.
9/11, I have a million questions about,
Yeah.
obviously.
Just start with Tower 7. Anybody
Well,
that
yeah,
wants anybody that wants to talk about 9/11, I'm like, listen, we're not going to talk about anything else. We're not going to talk about dancing Israelis or Israeli art students. We're not going to talk about the film. We're not going to talk about controlled demolitions that fell into their own footprint and it's never done before. We're not going to talk about the fact that the towers were made to withstand an airline impact. We don't have to talk about any of that.
right,
Tell,
right.
tell me about Tower 7. Tower 7 was
Sure.
Tower 7 was never hit by an aircraft. Tower 7 was on fire for whatever reason, 400 meters away from the impact zone. It was never impacted by a large structure, and it somehow fell into its own footprint as if a controlled demolition would, unexplainably. Let's start there. You know what I
And
mean?
yeah, and I've always had questions about that,
Right.
and I've watched like a ton of documentaries, and I've gotten into that whole documentary sphere
Hmm.
about kind of like, you know, are we being told the truth? And I mean, the simple question that I can ask, that one question, are we being told the truth? And it's like no, but
No, you're not.
it's the why for me. I guess is
Right.
is the big thing. It's like why aren't we being told the truth? Why are we being lied to? Why are things not what they seem? And why wouldn't they want us to know the truth? That's the other thing for me. Just a big question mark that I have is like, why wouldn't they want us to know the truth? Is it because they're in on it? You know? And so that leads me back to the Vegas shooting, which I have to admit I am completely ignorant into, and that's why I brought somebody who can talk as fluidly as you can about it.
Right.
Um, just because there are so many, there are so many red flags, there are so many, non-connections that I can make that it's just like, okay, what is this? You
Right.
know, I mean, is this a cover up? Is this a conspiracy? You know, what's the and you know the only way to kind of um, it's just to talk to everybody. You know, I'm talking to people that are on the other side of the fence that don't think it's true, to people that are like, yeah, it definitely happened. This is what it is, and let me tell you about it.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's you start with those questions and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. And the first thing that you have to look at is like, who is Stephen Paddock? Stephen Paddock is there was a Route 91 music festival that was going off here very famously. So he was in the MGM 31st floor, 32nd floor of this building. And all the reports is like, hey, this crazy dude broke out a window in a casino and ended up committing the largest mass shooting in America's history. Like to this day, it is the largest mass shooting in American history at the Route 91 Music Festival. He basically opened fire from what sounded like an automatic machine gun into a crowd of people sitting in Las Vegas watching a country music festival, right? Like that was the initial reporting. So when you see that initial reporting, you start looking at what they're reporting, and for you conspiracy minded people out there, you start looking at what they're not reporting.
right.
We never had a motive. There was never any coverage after like 2 weeks. Like this thing for the largest shooting in mass, the largest mass shooting in America's history. What you didn't see, which is really important, you didn't see Democrats calling for gun control. You didn't see this huge push to take away your weapons. You didn't see all of the normal things that you would see. And when those normal things, I always say that I'll stop connecting dots as a conspiracy theory nut when they stop putting dots up on the board. Like
Sure.
if you guys
Absolutely.
if you guys quit giving me things to connect, I would stop connecting him. So Stephen Paddock was like a 50-year-old dude. He was a whale, but he played like online video poker. So he frequented Las Vegas. He would come out all the time and he had status as a high rolling player, right? So he wasn't one of these whales that they would bring in, but he would get his rooms comped. He would come in, he would be taken care of. And what that gave him is a certain amount of privilege when you're doing things in and around Las Vegas. Like, I'm going to shut this door. Hold on.
Sure.
Sorry, I had a podcast baby and a podcast dog in here. My son woke up from a nap and
I got my
walked in to
dog
say
back
hi.
here behind me right now.
I
You'll
know, yeah.
you'll see his head back there a little bit.
My dog is an absolute menace. So she was floating, or she poked her head in the door, and then my little son came in and said hi as well. So Stephen Paddock goes to Las Vegas, and now the inconsistencies start, right? So Stephen Paddock's father was actually a bank robber. He was on the FBI's most wanted list. He grew up in a weird place. Stephen Paddock owned a plane that was also contracted by the CIA. He was a pilot. He had
What
a
kind of
small family.
I've heard this a bunch of different times, and he owned multiple aircraft.
He owned multiple aircraft. He was a aircraft enthusiast, but was also contracted by the agency and a couple different agency cutouts to do some sort of stateside mission. So, and this happens all the time. The CIA has essentially cutouts in front companies, and by the way, the military does this too. There was a Politico article that just dropped. So I'm not speaking out of school here, but Politico reported on the Army's Tier 1 unit, colloquially known as Delta Force. But there was basically the story that just dropped this within the last couple of weeks, was a chick that worked there, and then she alleged all kinds of sexual misconduct. But in this story, for whatever reason, she basically pulled the curtain back. It was like, yeah, these people couldn't even manage their front companies correctly, and like we had to go and like pick up mail at these places to make it look like they were walking. And the special operations community freaked the fuck out because they were like,
Really?
what? Oh yeah, because they were like, what are you doing, confirming or denying that that is a thing? Like, and it's
Oh,
it's
So I worked at an airport in DC. I actually worked at multiple Manassas and Dulles, and then
well,
in
Manassas, the world's
Stafford.
most livable community.
Oh yeah, right. But I actually worked at the regional airport there, and
Mhm.
I can come under fire for saying this. I really don't care. Aircraft Associates is definitely 1,000% the CIA, and
100%.
so is Leidos. So are
Oh
all
yeah.
of
Oh yeah.
that whole back government row. As soon as they hand you a government air card, and they have the beards and they have the typical, what you would see on something like Homeland, you're like, okay, I know what this is.
You know what's funny is I worked with one of the Army Tier unit dudes, and his wife was hilarious. Like his wife was absolutely hilarious. She's like, "You guys all wear what I like to call the off-duty operator uniform." She was like, "You dorks go over to Europe, and you're all 6 foot tall, tattooed white dudes that are in super good shape with expensive tactical watches, and you all wear baseball caps. You look like you guys are sponsored by North Face. You guys can't hide. Every government agency is the same thing, right?"
Yeah, oh
Like
yeah.
You can see that you have a haircut that's just barely within a regulation. I can tell that you guys all look, you're all essentially looking the same. I mean, there are flights right now. Like right now, there's a flight that's getting ready to take off out of here from Las Vegas Airport from Harry Reid. It's Harry Reid now. I'll never call it Harry Reid. It's McCarran Airport. To
It
take it out,
is.
it's taken off out of Harry Reid International Airport right now. It's got red and white stripes on it. It's called a Jenny aircraft. It doesn't have a tail number. It's going to Groom Lake. It's going to take the people that work there. It flies like Tuesdays and Saturdays. Every single day, like clockwork. Everybody can take pictures of it. It's obviously a front for a Skunk Works program that works at one of those places. So it just is what it is, right?
Sure.
Yeah, but the fact that they pulled the curtain back on this thing and they were like, "Hey, like this is an actual thing," that caused, a lot of problems. But the CIA runs those programs everywhere, and Stephen Paddock was involved in that before any of this stuff started. So the background on them, and again, it's like look what they're not reporting. I'm gonna plug this light in too. Give me one second.
Sure. Sure, man.
It died on me. I got a face for radio, so I need all the help that I can get. But he was involved in this, and to talk about like the things that they're not reporting. The first thing that I look at in news reporting, especially in the world of mainstream media today, is what don't I know about this person, and why can't I figure it out? So when you look at Stephen Paddock, his background, magically, we can't find anything out about this dude. A guy that frequented Las Vegas, a guy that had privilege as a high roller, at least in the video poker realm. That's how he made most of his money. He's got bank accounts that we can't explain, but nobody ever dug into him. He's got a contract to fly for an OGA, and other governmental agency, but we can't understand what he was doing or why he was picked or how he ever got selected for that or how he was ever made to be an asset of those agencies. When you compare it to other conspiracy theories, look at the first Trump shooter. I'm blanking on that dude. Crooks. Brandon
Yeah, Crooks.
Crooks.
Was it Thomas Matthew Crooks?
Thomas Matthew Crooks. How much do we know about him? He had six different cell phones. He had multiple encrypted apps. His cell phone pinged to a range where Department of Homeland Security officials frequently shot. They've got an FBI agent that pinged at his house, and then his phone pinged down at their headquarters. Why don't we know anything about that? The
And
mainstream
how is his
media.
house wiped?
How is his house white? Why is his silverware gone?
Yeah, I mean, why is there anything that you could leave DNA on? Why is that just not available?
Why was he cremated a day after his body was released? And that's not the thing. Why did they hose the roof down of all of his DNA? How was he able to fly a drone over those location in Pennsylvania for almost 2 hours prior? And why did that fall within a weird window where the Secret Service drone went down and the guy was literally on a call with the agency, like with the drone company, with DJI, to try to
Right.
figure out why their drone wouldn't work? So when you look at those things that aren't reported, you have to start asking questions, and those questions pop up everywhere with Paddock. Paddock, his entire background is really a mystery. We don't know. It took a long time to even figure out that his father was on the FBI's most wanted list for robbing a bank and going to jail over it years prior. And
Really?
that brings us to Las Vegas. So he shows up to Las Vegas, and Stephen Paddock allegedly comes into the MGM carrying with him 30 separate rifles, all loaded with individual magazines, allegedly with bump stocks on them. And he loaded all this stuff up onto a cart and into an elevator, which we have footage of. And he goes up to the 31st floor of the MGM. Now, some people will kind of try to explain this away that you get a little bit more latitude, right? People are like, how did nobody notice this guy carrying in huge bags of stuff, throughout this entire time up to his floor? Listen, Vegas is weird, bro. You remember the scene in Seven where
Yes.
they're walking around and the detective is asking the guy at the sex shop and he's like, "Do you see anybody coming in here with bags?" He's like, "Bags? Bro, some people bring whole suitcases full of shit in here. It's
Right.
not my
Right.
job to ask him." That's the kind of privilege that Stephen Paddock had in Las Vegas. If you're a high roller and everybody knows it, you have your own private entrances, you have your own private elevators, you have your own private concierge staff, you have your own private phone lines. All of these things are given to you because they want you to stay here and drop money. And the more that they take care of you, the more you're going to stay here and drop money. And Stephen Paddock was in that world. So when people are like, "Oh, I don't understand how he could bring in all these bags," it was 400 pounds of gear. And again, it makes zero sense as a tactical guy. And we're going to talk about bump stocks and rate of fire here in a little bit. But
Cool.
as a tactical guy, if I'm going to go commit this murder, you always try to place yourself, a handy thing in anything from military planning, conducting special operations, all the way down to, political debate and discussion. It's handy a handy tool is to place yourself into the shoes of your adversary and think to yourself, how would I do this if I was them? Because that makes your position better, right? If I'm
Right.
going to attack a house, if I'm going to go, like, I'm going to go take this house, there's a bad guy in the house. I want to go take the house. I want to capture or kill that guy. I think to myself, okay, what's the most likely COA? Course of action. What are people going to do? They're probably going to shoot back at us. What's the most deadly? They're going to rig the house with explosives. Okay, now how do we defeat those things and everything in between those two things? When I think to myself as a tactical guy, if I want to commit a mass shooting, what do I need? I need a weapon with a high rate of fire. Typically, a squad automatic weapon, either a 5.56 or a 7.62 variant. Those are your M240 or M249 variants of a squad automatic machine gun. It's small, it's man carryable, and they have linked ammunition. If it was me, I would take a lot of ammunition and not a lot of guns. Stephen Paddock took a shit ton of guns. That doesn't make any sense. Professionals don't do that. And that's one of the other questions about Stephen Paddock is he a professional? Is he a crazy guy? How did he figure it out? Professionals would not do that. Professionals would bring a whole bunch of linked ammunition. I'd probably bring 2 or 3 different barrels with me to change those weapons can change barrels out pretty quickly because they get super hot. They fire at a high cyclic rate of fire. And
Sure.
I'd be able to change those barrels out and I'd have a lot of ammunition, not a lot of guns. It
And
makes
all of that, all of the weapons and everything. I mean, that takes up like a footprint because I'm thinking about like the gun safe that we have, and I mean, you can't get 30 guns in there, and I mean that thing wouldn't fit
he,
on like a bellhop cart, like at
Yeah,
all.
well, he brought him in on a bellhop cart. The rifle's really, I mean, when you're talking about a 16-inch rifle and you have a big, he brought him in a bit, we used to affectionately call them rolling hooker bags, wheels
Okay.
on the end of it so you could pick it up by a handle and you could roll it in. You could fit a lot of guns in there. Like especially
Really?
the way that he had it, yeah, simple magazine, simple rifle loaded with a single magazine. You can stuff a lot of those bad. I mean, I would deploy. We'd have like you'd take everything that you would need for a 6 month deployment, and you'd have like 4 of those bags. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that you could just find a big duffel bag, throw them in there, and then put them on the cart and whatever else. It's, the bellhop that's picking it up. He's like, well, this is heavy. That's kind of weird. He puts it on the bellhop cart, and we have footage of Stephen Paddock in the helicopter, or in the helicopter, in the elevator, riding up with those bags to his room, right? But it doesn't make any sense. That's not what a professional would do. You
No, no,
wouldn't
no.
you wouldn't load up individual rifles. I'm not going to shoot a whole rifle of ammunition and throw that rifle down and pick up another rifle and then shoot that rifle. That doesn't make any sense. You'd reload magazines. You would just take a new source of ammunition, put it into your dry weapon, make that weapon hot, and then fire again. But that's not what he did, allegedly. It just doesn't make any sense. Leading up to this, there were several things that really made zero sense at all. The so his room, and I'm going to try to find this here. His room had several times where people were like changing the code and changing the key on his door. So basically, what happened is at 9:20, about 40 minutes before the shooting, a young Hispanic woman pushed to the front of the festival crowd and tells another woman of the crowd that she was going to die and that everyone around was going to die tonight too. Security had to remove her and the male that she was with, and she was never seen again for causing a commotion. That was right before the shooting.
Was this
Uh,
one of the women that we think that was maybe occupying that room?
Exactly. So he
Yeah.
saw Paddock was seen with these 2 Hispanic females way earlier at 6 p.m. And that was about 3 hours before the shooting. The door locks were still being tampered with. So basically, what happens is the door was being like rekeyed by only people that could actually like do it from the door. Like the hotel staff would have to rekey this door, and there was no call, there was no service call, there was no call from Paddock saying, "Hey, my door isn't working." So he's seen with 2 Hispanic females on security footage walking through. There was a room service ticket that indicated 2 separate meals, so 2 cheeseburgers. 18 minutes of lock manipulation in rooms 134 and 135 per the digital log appeared to be attempts to alter the code of these locks, and it was after a reported gunshot happened in that hotel room. So
And so were
basically,
they doing this remotely? Do we
no,
think
they
they were
couldn't do it
actually physically at the
physically at the
door?
door. Yeah.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, so here's how this day works out. Stephen Paddock shows up. He takes his 400 pounds of weapons and ammunition up to his room. He's shortly thereafter seen with 2 Hispanic females. They get a room service call to his room, and he orders 2 different meals. So maybe he was just super hungry, and he ordered. By the way, he ordered the exact same thing. He ordered 2 cheeseburgers worth of meals. So those 2 Hispanic females are allegedly in the room with him. They order these room service calls, And I'm trying to get the time for you exactly. I don't think I have it here in my notes. Oh, a guest on the floor heard a gunshot at about 3:45 in the afternoon. And at 4, this is 15 minutes afterwards, the locks were being worked on for 18 minutes. So they order room service. There's two separate tickets. They come up. They never saw anybody. They dropped it at the door. At 3:45, there was a guest that called and reported a gunshot. At four
So,
o'clock is when the initial locks started getting worked on for 18 minutes.
so allegedly, if you were going to go into like an alternate dimension, right?
Right.
He meets with somebody that's or who because we think it is Stephen Paddock in that room, right?
Hmm.
That is who they've identified, and
That's true.
it's been duly identified. So if we were living in like an alternate timeline, right? He becomes a patsy. They whack him, and then they go out and then shut the door. All allegedly, right?
Allegedly, of
And then
course.
they
Of course.
oh yeah, of course. But and they manipulate the locks for 18 minutes. I mean, this is all a digital lock system. So are they changing it? Do I think like I mean, there's just there's a lot for me to unpack there, you know. But all right, we'll move back to the regular dimension. So
Right.
continue on with the timeline. Sorry about that.
So it's okay. So they start screwing around with the locks. There's 18 minutes of them trying to screw around with the locks after that. Why were there two blood pools is another question. So when they found Stephen Paddock later to Tarantino it a bit and go to the end, there were two separate blood pools that they found in that room. Stephen Paddock died of what was a alleged self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head.
Laying on
Paddock,
his gun.
yeah, well, laying, yeah, completely like listen, man. Like this is going to be kind of weird. I've seen a lot of people die with rifles in their hands.
Sure.
That ain't how it works, homie.
No.
You do not end up laying on your rifle. Paddock also had blunt force trauma to his calves and knees per the autopsy report. So basically what happens is 3:45 gunshots reported at 4 o'clock. That's when the initial logs for 18 minutes of somebody trying to change it. A security guard named Jesus Campos shows up to the room. People initially reported multiple shooters had died. Jesus Campos goes up to the room to investigate this bad boy. That security guard ended up disappearing. They never found him.
Not to this day, they still haven't found them.
He's just
Correct.
gone. I'd have to look up and see if that is still a true fact now. He just disappeared, just off the face of the planet.
Didn't
Every
he
si-
do like an interview or something
He
like
did right
afterwards, like
afterwards.
an
Yeah,
Ellen or
with
something?
Ellen. Yeah, totally. Yeah, good memory there. Yeah, 100%. And then later he disappeared. And by the way, and again, if you stop putting dots up on the wall, I'd stop asking so many questions, but he wasn't the only person. Basically, every person that came out publicly and said anything about multiple shooters or helicopters that we'll talk about a little bit later, every single one of them died in mysterious circumstances.
Sure.
Car accidents, they disappeared for a couple days and then they were found dead in the middle of Zion,
I mean,
National
9.
Forest.
What was the body count up to from the actual people that witnessed it? It got up to 9 or 10, didn't it?
It's 9. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's incredible. And I mean,
It is
okay,
incredible. It's
one.
the literal meaning of the word incredible, not credible. That is, it's like the Clinton body count. You're telling me that 52 people in your circle just mysteriously died, to include one staffer that shot himself with his in the chest and then hung himself from a tree with an extension cord. You're
Oh,
telling me that's the story?
wait, hold on. Paul hung it, killed himself first, right? And then to make sure that he did the job, hung himself.
Now
I mean,
listen, I'm not saying anything. Here's what I'm saying. Here's
let
the
me.
actual report. And you know what's funny is that this question actually got asked in the White House briefing room to Caroline Levitt. And it was crazy. This reporter just absolutely dropped a nuke on the Clinton body count because it was reported by the Arkansas paper, like the Arkansas Sun reported on this. So a former staffer of theirs was found hanging from an extension cord in a tree in a field with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the chest. How?
Yeah.
How? Which one came for? You're telling me that this guy was so hard that he hung himself on an extension cord, and while he was hanging there, he had the wherewithal to shoot himself in the chest with a shotgun? That doesn't. It seems like you
And
do
how
one
do
or
you
the
have?
other.
I mean, unless you're humongous and jacked, to be able to sit
Right.
there and you mean even I mean a shotgun. That's not like a light thing for you to be.
No.
No way.
No. Yeah.
Absolutely no way.
Absolutely. So, you start rolling that into it as everybody that's seen this, we never found those two Hispanic women. We never found the Hispanic woman and her male counterpart that warned people 40 minutes before the shooting started that something was going to happen and that everybody was going to die. And Stephen Paddock is alone in his room. Now, this brings up the next very interesting thing. Every casino here, and I can tell you from living in Vegas, I lived in Vegas for 5 years before that. I've lived here for 2 years now. I'm never leaving. I love this town. It's why I'm so connected to the Vegas event.
Sure.
Those windows don't open. They also can't be broken easily because people that lose money on gambling will jump out of the window if able. You can't throw a chair through them. They said that Stephen Paddock hit this with a hammer and broke his window. There are pictures of his window being broken. I can tell you for sure that is bullshit.
It's
That
so
is,
it's supposed to be bulletproof glass, correct? Like
it
it's
is.
supposed to have like a layer. It's supposed to be like a
It's
double layered
it's not
protected.
technically bulletproof, but it's as close as you can get without having because bulletproof is actually a rating. Like when you
Okay.
have bulletproof glass, like if you have a car that has bulletproof glass, we would drive around in cars that were up armored and had bulletproof glass. That is actually a specific rating, and they have to have like certain things. There's a layer of super thick glass, and then there's a layer of essentially it's not Kevlar, but it's like Kevlar. There's like a coating in between it. Then there's another layer of that glass, and it stops things from penetrating. The glass will in fact break, but the bullet or the projectile won't penetrate through it. So that's a specific rating. So they're not bulletproof glass, but I'll tell you what, they're damn near.
Sure.
No
Sure.
amount, even a very large weapon like a 50 cal, maybe could go through one of those windows. But I'll tell you what, small arms, no. Like a
And you'd
nine
have to be at
millimeter,
close
no.
range for that though, too, right?
You
Like you'd
would.
have to be on something like, I mean, but foot's away, like not,
Right.
from the distance where he was at.
100%. Yeah. So, the Route 91 doc, they start talking about multiple shooters. We're going to start talking about rates of fire and stuff. I'm trying to look for the exact time when he started shooting here because I got this big expansive note that I'm looking for. Yep. At 9:20, is when the initial Hispanic woman came up and said, "Hey, you guys are all going to die. You need to get out of here." So at about 10 o'clock, and I believe it's like 10:06, there's a great resource too that I'm just gonna tell the folks out there to go look at. It's really
Okay.
hard to find, but if you Google it, you can go to vegasshootingmap.com. And
Oh
what
yeah,
this,
this is another thing I wanted to ask you about.
yeah. Well, let me see. Let me see if I can.
Are you still able to find it, or do you need to do it through Brave? Because it took me to get on Brave with a VPN and some
Yeah.
other things.
And if
Oh
you
yeah,
send, yeah,
yeah,
hit that request and I'll share my screen
sure,
here.
yeah.
And then basically I'll show you like this is the most insane thing ever. Remember how I said like Tower 7 is the
You're
first
good.
thing?
You're good.
Okay. So Tower 7 is the first thing that you need to look at for the 9/11 conspiracy to really go down the rabbit hole. This map right here, every single one of these, there's over 10 hours of 911 calls. You can look and you can see this is the actual concert site here. So if I zoom in here, you can see where people die, where people got injured. But what you can also see is all around the city, you'll see this little telephone icon. Those are 911 calls. There's over 10 hours of 911 calls. If we zoom all the way out, you can see that this is McCarran International Airport. This plays a large part too. This is the helicopter, Grand Canyon helicopter tours. There were multiple very, very interesting calls here that talked about shooters, small teams of folks running around. There were 3 helicopters that took off and had no transponders. Their
And let me ask you
transponder.
a question.
Go ahead.
So there's a call that I heard when I was searching through this whole rabbit hole, and I ended up finding the link on Reddit. There from a lady from Sunset Helicopters.
That's the helicopter place that I was talking about. Sunset Helicopters is on the south side of the city. It's attached to McCarran Airport. Sunset Helicopters is here, and they reported an active shooter at their place. The reason that that lady called is her husband is actually an off-duty cop. There's a 911 call that corroborates her information with the off-duty cop. She basically called her husband in a panic. He's like, "Hey, call 911," and he called 911 too.
Okay. And it's so Sunset Helicopters, they actually don't exist anymore. They went
They
defunct
don't.
like shortly after, like maybe
Right.
a year or two after they went under.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was a 5-star helicopter to 5-star Grand Canyon helicopter tours, and Sunset Helicopter shared essentially the same piece of the tarmac. It's right by JSX.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So, the shooting starts, and the first thing that we're going to talk about is rate of fire. So, allegedly, he used separate guns with bump stocks. There are multiple videos out there, and you can find them on that vegasshootingmap.com. There are multiple videos out there that have very clear, and by the way, like this is in the era of cell phones. This is 2017. Everybody had a cell phone out.
And
Everybody was
they
taking,
were good. I mean, it was you had a what a 2K camera in your
oh
pocket. And
yeah,
I don't think they were
yeah.
all 4K back then, but they were.
No, it was iPhones, homie. Like people were still doing like the phone that you have in your pocket. It was just a couple iterations before that, so it was pretty good. But the rate of fire is something that piqued everybody's interest, and this is one of those things where you have a finely tuned ear. Once you've heard something enough times, you can hear it when it isn't right. When we used to do jump master personnel inspections or JMPIs, so basically before you jump out of an aircraft, a jump master is looking at all of your gear, and you might think to yourself, "Oh, well, the jump master is looking to make sure you have it on right." No, you do so many of these. Like so many dudes put their parachutes on and they're perfect, right? Because they're professionals and they know how to rig their own gear. And you work with highly talented people all the time, right? When I'm a jump master, I don't look for things that are right. I can immediately focus on something that's wrong. When I look at something, I'm like, oh, that's wrong. Sometimes I don't even know what it is. I'm like, that doesn't look right. And then I'll inspect it further and I'll be like, oh, this is routed incorrectly, or this strap is not correct on your piece of equipment. That's actually how they teach you in school. Well, the rate of fire question, every single veteran that I knew that watched these videos and listened to the cyclic rate of fire, there because the allegation here is that he was using semi-automatic weapons using a bump stock. A bump stock is a piece of equipment that you put onto the stock of your rifle, and it's almost like it's spring loaded. And what it does is that it bounces, it essentially turns a semi-automatic weapon. Semi-automatic means that when you pull the trigger, it shoots. Automatic means when you pull the trigger down and you hold it, it continues to shoot. The trigger mechanism resets itself and fires through the bolt carrier group, having the striking pin impact the primer on the bullet, and the bullet comes out of the gun. That's as plainly as I can kind of put it there.
Sure, sure.
If you have a semi-automatic weapon, it means one trigger pull, one shot. Automatic weapon means you hold the trigger down and it fires everything until it's done.
And they're really, and bump stocks are like experimental. Like they're not what standard operators or anything would use
No,
currently.
no, we have fully automatic weapons in the military. To have a fully automatic weapon in the civilian world is highly. I mean, it you used to be able to buy fully automatic weapons. That's a whole different rabbit hole on the Second Amendment and all that other stuff. But the point of my little rant here is that when the bump stock is not perfect, because it is a mechanical thing that you add on to the weapon, it doesn't allow the weapon to fire. Essentially, what it's doing is it's acting as your trigger finger. And as that weapon cycles forward, the spring loaded piece, as it bounces off of whatever it is up against, what that does is it resets the trigger. So
Oh,
as that thing moves forward, it pushes the trigger into your finger and then causes it to move back and forth, essentially to cause it. But what that leads to, number one, is malfunctions, and number two is a very irregular rate of fire. You'll have 5 or 6 rounds that go off perfectly, but then the weapon, because it's not meant to operate that way, gets out of cycle, and you'll miss a shot here and there. So
and
what
that's
we're
probably from like heat that's generated, parts
it,
inside the weapon expanding,
It's
due
just
to
from the
the
mechanical
heat.
operation of the bump stock. Because
Really?
again, it's an
Okay.
add-on piece of thing. Like, I mean, you could do the same thing with a rubber band, essentially. If you tied a rubber band onto that thing and the rubber band was just strong enough to let it recycle and go forward, that's essentially how a bump stop works.
Oh, okay.
So it basically, again, think of like a spring-loaded thing that you're putting against the shoulder if you're firing a rifle, and the rifle is moving back and forth with recoil, right? Basically, what the bump stock is doing is as the spring compresses on the bump stock, it pushes the rifle forward. The trigger has reset, and then the trigger comes back into sear. And as it pushes it forward, that is what is making the weapon fire. But that leads to number one, malfunctions, and number two, a very irregular rate of fire. It does not
Okay.
sound like a squad automatic machine gun. From every single one of those videos on the cell phones, you can hear a like every single veteran that I've ever had. If you work in the combat arms in any of the military branches and you hear the rate of fire, you're like, that's a saw. That's a squad automatic weapon.
Right.
I can
Right.
tell you 100%. I had friends that were so good that were like machine gunners in the Marine Corps and stuff. I'd be like, hey, listen to this video. And they'd be like, nope, that's a 249, not a 240. I can tell you for sure. They can tell the difference between the caliber of the weapon because you've heard it fire right so many times that when it doesn't fire right, you can hear it. So they're listening for a bump stock, and what they're hearing is a squad automatic weapon. They're
Right.
hearing a
Right.
single automatic weapon. And oh, by the way, the round count doesn't matter either, or doesn't match either. So the round count is there are, we have very finely tuned pieces of equipment that can suss out that exact sound, that can find that sound, and then can count them. There were strings of fire that were like 64 bullets long. There are no magazines that Stephen Paddock had that had 64 bullets in it. At the very
Yeah.
most, you can get a drum. So they do make some drums for AR-15s and other weapons platforms that have like 100 rounds in them. Like you can get
Right.
100 round rounds. He didn't have those. And the weapons that he had that were expended almost all had single mags in them. So that's either 30 or in some cases 60 rounds of ammunition. There are strings of fire, and there was no, again, he's taking these weapons, he's putting them down, he's picking up another weapon. And he did have a little in the room, you could see there were pictures of the room where he had a little staging area where it was like, oh, okay, well, here's where he staged next to the window. Um, However, you have to think in your head logically, okay, he's going to fire this weapon until it's dry of ammunition. He's going to put that weapon down. He's going to reach over to his staging area. He's going to pick up, he's going to get another sight target, and he's going to begin firing. There should be a natural break that has all of those things happening at the time. There is no break in any of these things.
And
There,
there's nothing, there's no indication out there that he had any type of tactical firearms,
no.
or any type of training. So, I mean, if you look at any of the, the professional shooting guys, the Sean Ryan videos or any of those that you can see, I mean, the the breaks in between there, I mean, even if he was the best operator, he wouldn't have been able to make the audio match with what the story is,
No.
correct?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, the very and I'm trying to find some photos of kind of how they had it here. I think this is the one that I want.
The other thing,
Um,
the other question I've always had is, okay, so we have a gun count. How many guns did he actually had?
Up to
Um,
30. So I think
but
they found like 27.
how many magazines did they
Each
say? Did
each
they
one of
say?
them had like one or two each. And some of them, so there's like these little things that you can get. They're basically like little clips, right? And you can
Sure,
put that clip on a magazine and then it'll hold another magazine as well.
sure. They go opposite of each other, correct?
Right. And then you could just, yeah, and then you could basically take that magazine out and then just change it to your other magazine. So one or two of the rifles did have some of that. One of them had a high capacity magazine, like up to 60. But he had like 30 weapons, like 27 total weapons in that room. I'm trying to find the picture that I want that shows. So this is pretty good. So yeah, what I'll do here is I'll share my screen and we'll go through some of these photos and you guys
Sure,
can kind
yeah,
of
absolutely, man.
see exactly what we're doing here. So as we see here, I mean, that's the basic setup of the room. That's the window that he completely broke it out. So if you see where my cursor is moving right there, that window is completely broken out. He's got multiple rifles. This looks like five or six that are strewn across the room. These are the five that are there. The one on the right there, you can see it's got a forward hand grip and it's got an extended magazine. You can see the bump stock on the one on the chair. That's what a bump stock looks like. Some
Okay.
of them didn't have bump stocks on them though. So you see all of these things here. Again, why would you do this? Why would you have multiple rifles? Why would you have these rifles out? Some of them have bipods on them. That's meant for target shooting or for like long distance shooting.
And
Um,
so you'd have to set, if it had a bipod on it, right? You'd have to actually set that up. Like you're not just
right.
grabbing that, sticking it down, and then pointing and spraying off. So
There'd be no reason to, right? And that's the point. There'd be no reason for that. He wasn't acting as a sniper. If you were going to act as a sniper, here's a look at the ammunition. These ammunition counts don't match up. This is allegedly the sledgehammer that he used to take out the window. That's his spent ammunition. That is not the amount of rounds. He fired over 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Does that look like 1,000 rounds of ammunition to you?
no, I mean allegedly that only looks like maybe 100.
Yeah. And so this is his viewpoint. That's where you can look down and see the parking lot. That's exactly where it happened. This is the note allegedly that he left, the car that he came in, some of his other personal effects and stuff that he brought in.
Well,
But none,
okay, so here's that's something interesting. This is something I haven't actually heard. So he actually left a note that kind of explaining himself or
no,
whatever.
he didn't. No, it was just a handwritten note. I'd have to see exactly what it has like on the note here. But it was just a handwritten note that he had written. I don't know what the contents of the note were, but it definitely wasn't a manifesto or a reasoning why he did it. We still don't know that. We still have no idea. The FBI came out, I want to say in 2023 or 2024 with an update, and they were like, yeah, he felt like he felt like he was more of a high roller than Vegas treated him, and that made him mad. And everybody's like, what the hell are you talking about? That doesn't make any
Try to go
sense.
take the staff out at that point. Oh,
Why would he, right? Why would he slaughter 51 innocent civilians in the largest mass shooting that America has ever seen because he was mad at Las Vegas generally? Like that
right.
doesn't make any sense at all. So basically, all this stuff happens. I actually have a close personal connection to this, and I told the story on I Came with Fire. But when I was living here before, I became really good friends. I worked out at a gym, best gym in Vegas. It's CrossFit Apollo. It's still working here. It's like 10 minutes away from my house now. I worked out there with a bunch of folks that were in law enforcement. It was a great community. I love those dudes. I am pretty anti-law enforcement in my general life just because I think a lot of the things that they do are bad. And at the same time, I have a bunch of friends that work in law enforcement. They have an unwinnable, like impossible job that they try to do, and a lot the good ones do it the right way, and unfortunately, the bad ones do it the wrong way.
Sure.
Um, so I met a bunch of friends. I actually know there was a very famous video of a SWAT cop whose son was at the Route 91 festival. He was injured, and he was treating other injured people at the event, and his father was simultaneously making entry into the room. And they were like, it was this crazy thing where they had the recorded phone call because he was wearing a body cam. So you could hear him talking to his son as he's about to make entry into the room. He was one of the first cops into that room
Really?
during that event, right? So they come in and they found Stephen Paddock dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, laying on top of one of the rifles by the window. And Bob's your uncle. And then we start going through it. And less than 2 weeks later, the story just disappears from the American mind, and we get no answers on it. The FBI puts out the memo. I'll find the updated memo and read it exactly because memo Stephen Paddock. Let me try to find the memo that they put out. Yes, this is in 2023 about the Mandalay Bay shooting. The high stakes gambler who carried out the deadliest mass shooting in America, killing 60. I said 51, it's actually 60. In Las Vegas was apparently angry over how the casinos were treating him despite his high roller status. An FBI interview with the gunman's fellow gambler is detailed in hundreds of pages of documents made public this week. It said that Paddock, 64, was a video poker player who relied on gambling as his main source of income. And he believed the stress could have easily caused gunman Stephen Paddock to snap. The revelation comes years after the FBI in Las Vegas and the local police department concluded their investigation without a definitive motive.
Oh,
In a statement
throw your
Thursday,
rubber stamp on that. Let's
yeah,
chuck it to the wayside.
yep. And in a statement on Thursday, Las Vegas police defended their inconclusive findings and dismissed the importance of documents released this week in response to an open records request from the Wall Street Journal. We were unable to determine a motive for the shooter, the statement said. Speculating on a motive causes more harm to the hundreds of people who were victims that night. So they don't have anything. He was a strange introvert. He never made eye contact and only wanted to talk about gambling. The gunman's fellow gambler told the FBI that Paddock was very upset that red carpet treatment for high rollers seemed to be fading. He got that treatment the day that he showed up to Las Vegas. He was in a nice room that was comped. He was given his own private entrance. He was given everything that he was normally given as this. None of that makes any sense. And to follow with the things that make no sense, Stephen Paddock's brother was arrested later for having a Windows 95 operating system with allegedly 2 terabytes of child porn.
Okay, first of all,
Let that roll
terabytes
around in
didn't
your head.
yeah, terabytes didn't exist in
Right.
1995. Okay, I don't think that you can even install a copy of Windows 95 on these newer, updated systems. I just don't think it allows you to do that. So
Right.
that's another thing. How you, okay, it's going to take years to download 2 terabytes onto a 56K modem. Okay,
Oh
we've
yeah.
all heard the 56K modem. We've all known. I mean, back when I was, a kid, we would have to go and get or we'd have to go and get, any type of you know, like you wanted to watch a video or whatever, or you wanted to see one picture. I mean, it would just span, and for hours until you were able just to load one grainy footage.
Well, yeah, and
You
then
know,
you'd have to upload, like, think about the internet at that time, right? In order to get, they allege that over 600, 600 images of child pornography were contained on this computer. He was arrested at a assisted living facility. He was 58 years old. He was living in an assisted living facility. And then magically, that evidence was destroyed in a fire which again, you just laugh. You're like, oh, so you're telling me the FBI had all this, and they're like, well, yeah, his brother was arrested for all of this child support.
Isn't that their
Um,
move, though? I mean, okay, allegedly. I will say this. We'll
right.
say allegedly. Isn't that the move? Anytime they want to discredit somebody, they go ahead and they give them, some type of connection to child pornography. Like, it seems that CP is it is like from top tier crimes, above murder, above all of that stuff. The easiest way to discredit somebody, especially because, I mean, wasn't that when they were doing the investigation kind of around the time that Epstein was being arrested and all of that stuff was being thrown in our face? The
Mhm.
easiest way that you would discredit somebody is to link him to that.
Right. Well, and there like the other inconsistencies that are, yeah, of course, like CP, child pornography is the quickest way. Like it's the old playbook, right? Like, oh, this guy was a child predator. But there's so many more inconsistencies. In the autopsy report, Stephen Paddock had no gunshot residue on him.
Okay,
That's
so
it.
how do you kill yourself and you don't get GSR on you?
How?
I,
How? Like that
I,
doesn't make any sense, but it's in the official autopsy report. I want to talk about something else. There's a very clear video. Basically, Mandalay Bay dominates that southern part of the strip's skyline, right? Like Mandalay Bay is really the biggest thing on the south part of that strip. It's right by the airport. It's one of the first casinos that you see when you land. Between that and one of the other casinos that you can kind of see off in the distance, there's a very clear domination of the skyline. You can't see the rest of the strip lies northeast of where we're talking about here. But there are a couple very interesting videos because one of the conspiracy theories here is that there were multiple shooters. And if you go to that Vegas shooting map, there are hundreds of 911 calls that allege people running around. There are people at the Excalibur that said there was an active shooter in the Excalibur that's about 2 blocks away. It's right across the street from Mandalay Bay. It's about 2 blocks away from that airport. One of the other really interesting things that you have to look at here is that they have 3 helicopters that took off. Those 3 helicopters took off and they turned their transponders off.
okay,
And we
that's
can
that's
see
a humongous no-no.
and we can see, and think about the airspace. Think like McCarran International Airport, Harry Reid International Airport is a huge airport. There are tours that are taking off, aircraft taking off everywhere. You're an aircraft guy. You know you don't take your transponder off. You know you don't stop talking to tower. Well, these three helicopters did exactly that. About 12 minutes later, in between the Mandalay Bay and that other casino that I was talking about that dominate that southern skyline, it is very clear in several cell phone footage videos. Ian Carroll does a great video on this, by the way. So Ian Carroll is great, and a guy named James Cullen. If you really want to dive into this, James Cullen has
I've seen both.
probably, dude, James Cullen is the man on this. Like he
I mean,
breaks it
he has
down.
the most, as far as content, hours wise. He has,
Yeah,
over, I think when I totaled it up over the weekend or on Friday, I think it was like maybe 20 hours of
it's
just
a ton.
interviews with like
Yeah,
different people. You
yep.
know,
And
um,
Ian Carroll does a great job too. But
and
you can
Harry Reid, well, McCarran,
McCarran, yeah. Don't you ever say
International
Harry.
Airport is designated as a Class Bravo. But what's interesting is I'm looking right now on ForeFlight, which is an app that pilots will use to they'll plan around, but it shows you, and I have the military edition of ForeFlight. I actually have I have the access to DoD plates, approach plates, and approach charting. Um, I mean, just to look, there's not just Bravo around there because there's, uh, I mean, a Bravo. So it goes, Golf, Echo, Delta, or F is kind of a weird one. Then you have Delta, Charlie, Bravo, Alpha, right? Alpha is, that Alpha doesn't start, in some places up until 18,000 feet. Um,
Hmm.
but I'm looking at the airspace right now, and it's wild because there's all kinds of little pockets. There's a what's called a MOA, which is a military operations area. There's a MOA not far away from there.
Hmm.
But I mean, predominantly it's a Bravo. So you would think that the TRACONs that are tracking these guys, as soon as a transponder goes off, you know. And the other question I have is, these helicopters, if we could ever locate them, there's not just a transponder part of
Hmm.
the airplane. Now, after 2020, there's ADSB.
Oh yeah.
So their transponders, either if they're with a Garmin system, they have to have, ADSB, which is built into the transponder itself. So in theory, if you would shut that off, you would shut off all of the database. But a lot of those, they weren't commercially available. They were incredibly expensive. They were upwards of 10 grand if you were going to put them in your helicopter. Now, if you had a helicopter, the maintenance on that's, incredibly expensive, right? So you would figure that they would have the money to upgrade the systems. But a lot of helicopters had what's called tail beacons, which is something that's by UV Avionics. They were the premier ADSB squitter that would send the signal out, and they're connected to the nav lights. They're totally independent of the transponder. So I would be curious to see, uh, if there's any, if this were to ever come out, if there was any, hidden squitter, uh, because it transmits on a different frequency than the transponders. It's kind of for redundancy, whatever. I would
Mhm.
wonder if they, if any of those helicopters had the systems. Do we actually know what those helicopters were, who they were owned by, why they were, what the tail numbers? So in theory, the transponder's on at some point when it takes off,
Mhm.
right? We can,
That's
we
true.
go through
Right.
the logs and say, okay, well, these ones went dark. What's the tail numbers of them? What's the serial numbers of them? Let's look at the FAA. Let's go through and say, okay, well, these are owned by X number of people, and then trace the lineage back from that.
Right.
Um, do, has anybody ever done that yet?
I don't believe they have. I'm going to pull this video up, and this is the reason why we're talking about helicopters, right? Because one of the let's see if I can go. I can go full screen. Sweet. So one of the allegations here is that there was more than one shooter. There was another allegation that came out that during the shooting, you can see the Mandalay Bay right here, and I'm blanking on what casino this is over here. If you're looking at the right side of my screen over there,
Okay.
but the reason that we're talking about helicopters is because I want you to look in between these two. So look in this area right here. So we've got three helicopters. I'll lay the breadcrumbs out. We've got three helicopters that are not squawking, that have their transponders turned off. We have somebody that's in the building that's generally in this area over here that's supposedly firing from a bump stock at a rate of fire that is consistent with a squad automatic weapon. So now we're going to play this video. Hmm. How about this? Why can I not play it? Oh, no. I don't know what I did. I don't know why I can't do it. Hold on.
Looks like the cursor changed.
It did. I don't know why.
Oh, there it goes.
Okay. So you see those flashes?
So that's a tail. That's a beacon. That's the tail beacon.
That is not a tail beacon, my friend. Those what appear to be muzzle flashes.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because they're static. They're not moving. If
Oh,
you
right. Okay.
if you were gonna fire, if
And they're in different locations
right, three
and like
helicopters,
different,
right?
yeah, like different altitudes.
Because that's how you deconflict fire from a helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
So that is absolutely crazy. I mean, I get chills when I hear that lady Clarissa talking about it. So we have three helicopters that have turned off their transponders. Let me find where this video is. Yeah. So 3 helicopters that have turned off their transponders and are now flying somewhere in the Las Vegas metro area. The way that she's describing it sounds like a military aircraft, like a UH-60, because they have the doors that you can open and you can look out of. All of
Sure.
those, all of those helicopters you can both mount on, and it would be super simple to shoot a squad automatic weapon like the M249 or M240, like I was talking about, from those, and they would maintain a constant rate of fire.
Okay.
That is fucking crazy.
Is
The
there
way
is there another platform like a MD500 or the Little Bird that you can mount to too?
Yeah, you
Uh,
sure could. I mean, and again, the little bird, like you can sit on it on the skids, like that's a very standard configuration for those aircraft too. The guys that sit on the skids and do whatever else. But any one of those helicopters, it's very simple to have a team of 2 to 4 dudes on it that are able to provide fires in the way that they did it. And by the way, that's the tactic that you would use. Everybody would get into a hover, deconflict, generally be non-co-located in altitude. You'd want to give each other space so that you can
like
clear your
50
weapon
to
engagement.
100 feet
Just
of
clear it out of the
elevation
way.
between
Yeah.
between the two of them. Right.
And
Right.
that's why you would see the differences in altitude there. And those cannot be explained by anything else. They looked at all the other flight records, they looked at all the possibilities that were there to have multiple flashes happen there. And you're not going to catch every single flash on that video because it's grainy and it's pretty hard to see there at night. But to
Sure.
have those flashes from 3 separate locations all at the same time during the shooting going off, maintaining the same rate of fire, and then to have eyewitness accounts that said that not only did they see a helicopter, they saw a helicopter with its doors open, which would lead me to believe that that is some sort of variant of a 60, of a military style helicopter where you could open the door and have people sit with their legs out, because
Right.
that's how we flew. Dude, when you're flying into somewhere on an H-860, this tactic, changes every once in a while, because at GWAT they figured out I actually had a friend that was sitting with his legs out of the helicopter, and he was shot in the leg. It actually cost him his leg. He had to have his leg
Really.
amputated over it. Oh yeah. But that's how you would fly in, like these cool guy videos of dudes sitting with their legs hanging out of the helicopter as the pilot flies and you're sitting in the back. That's because when you land, you get off the helicopter the quickest like that. You unclip your
Right.
tie-in, you hit the ground, and you're good to go. The helicopter takes off and you're on the ground with your team. Man, if I was gonna, and again, placing yourself in your adversary's point of view, if I was going to conduct a mass shooting from a helicopter, I would sit a couple guys in the door of a 60. I would put 2 or 3 of them up there. They'd have a 249 each, so that's a 5.56 squad automatic weapon. They would sit in the doors. We would disassociate ourselves from altitude, give everybody a clear weapon engagement zone. We would try to shield ourselves from the airport, because the way that those helicopters were is you could see them from where that camera angle was. You couldn't see them from the airport, and you couldn't see them from basically anywhere else.
Right.
Like they were
Right.
shielded by those two. They were essentially using that as cover to operate, to fly behind there. And then magically the shooting starts, and then people start reporting that there are fires. There's also reports of small teams of men running around the entire south end of the strip. That's where the Sunset Helicopters call came from. They said that there was no kidding an active shooter at the helicopter place.
Right, right. So
Oh,
at the hangar where those guys are housed, and I
right.
actually heard it sounded like somebody said that they were changing clothes and they were
Mm-hmm.
changing an outfit
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yep.
So maybe they had like a go bag or something stashed there. Allegedly.
It's basic
Um,
field craft, dude. It's basic field craft. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're gonna conduct this attack, then you're gonna change out of your stuff. You're gonna disassociate from the environment. You're gonna take everything with you that you possibly can, and then you're gonna get out.
Now,
Um, eh,
so those helicopters they had to come from somewhere, right? And they
mhm.
don't have an unlimited amount of fuel.
Nope.
And you can't carry full fuel with a full tack load on those helicopters. You just can't. It would be too heavy.
Well, it
So
was too hot in Vegas.
and that's the other thing too. Density altitude, would
Mhm.
be your killer there.
Yep.
So they would have to go back. I mean, even empty, they'd have to go back somewhere. Within that was local. Um, so that's just why.
But here's the thing: Vegas ain't that big, homie. Vegas, the city, like the what you think about Las Vegas, is a 28-mile piece of land in the middle of the desert.
Really.
Oh yeah, dude, it is not big, and there's nothing around here. Like when you talk about drive, like I live way in the Northwest. There's a place called Sky Canyon. I live in and it's essentially as you're driving out, if you take 95 to the 215, 215 is the thing. I live like 2 exits beyond that. I live a little bit up the hill, right? It only takes me 25 minutes to get to the strip. But if you go 10 more minutes up that road, you're in the middle of nowhere. You are in the open desert. And if you go
Sure.
west, out of the city. Like if you go west, there's nothing there. It's an hour drive to get to Pahrump, Nevada, and there's nothing in between here and there. So
Right,
no
right,
kidding.
right.
Like if you go to the center of Vegas, if you go to the Strip, which is really the center of Vegas, if you go to the Strip and you look in any direction, if you can fly for 10 minutes, brother, you are in the desert. You are nowhere near a populated area. There's
Right,
no,
absolutely. And I mean,
there's,
there's only it looks like one, two. Well, that's Nellis, so you couldn't.
mhm.
I mean, I guess in theory, I mean, if they were military style helicopters, they could go back to Nellis,
It's a
virtually.
helicopter. They can land wherever they want.
Yeah, yep, yep.
You know
But
what I mean? They could like
my
they
thing
could go
would
to
be
a
getting
FARP.
back out.
They could go to a FARP in the middle of the desert. They could go to a forward air refueling point. Like again, if we're alleging here because there's a lot of allegations here that this was actually a Saudi run event, MBS. There's actually
Oh yeah,
connections
that
to
was my next. That was my next jumping off point.
well, yeah, there's actually a lot of connections to MBS. He was actually in Las Vegas at the time. He has connections to Stephen Paddock. MBS stuff, which is crazy to think that MBS has connections to them. But also, there's a connection to Jamal Khashoggi, which is how the
Yeah,
connection
The
gets
Khashoggi, the Khashoggi.
right. The
I
Khashoggi
was gonna
family.
ask you about that.
Well,
Um,
Adnan Khashoggi. So everybody knows Jamal Khashoggi. Jamal Khashoggi is the he was an asset. He was working for one of the intelligence agencies. He was famously killed and dismembered, and it was a huge deal. Like he was a dual
it was an
American
embassy
citizen.
attack, correct?
No, it was not. So Jamal Khashoggi essentially was a reporter. He was a dual American citizen, and he was lured in to a scenario where they killed him, and then they were on video of taking him out. They basically dismembered his body and then took him out. Right. Well, his older brother Adnan Khashoggi, who was also in the circle of Jeffrey Epstein,
Uh-huh.
Adnan Khashoggi is an international arms dealer.
So
Adnan
he
Khash-
and the allege is that he ran weapons for the what was it the Saudis for with Epstein, like
the
that's how
Saudis, the
they got
CIA,
into that.
Mossad, like all these things are interconnected here. Like all of these things are, man, it's like a Venn diagram and all of the circles interconnect. So Jamal Khashoggi's older brother, Khashoggi, is an international arms dealer and a terrible human. He's connected with Jeff Epstein. Jeff Epstein and Adnan Khashoggi had a penchant for young girls back in the 80s, and this was widely known. Like they
Sure.
are widely known associates. Adnan Khashoggi, it's alleged that he is one of MBS's fixers. MBS was in Vegas during this event. Adnan Khashoggi is there, and they have trillions, bro. Like we're talking about Saudi money here. So I know
Right.
it's a thing where like, well, where can these helicopters land? Well, if I had unlimited money, I'd set up a FARP in the middle of the desert. Those helicopters don't have to take off from somewhere in there. They don't have to have a tail number. They don't have to have a transponder. They don't have to have a support system because we're going to do it because we have the money to do it. It does not take much, man. We can set up a FARP in the middle of a desert. All you need is a fuel blivet and a couple of dudes that know how to fuel a helicopter just enough to get it out of here.
Really.
That's it. Oh, 100%. Dude, we do it all the time. Forward air. So it's FAARP. So forward arming and refueling point, or FARP, forward arming and refueling point. Basically, we have teams of people in the military, and the 160th SOAR does this the best. They do it better than anybody. You can literally have a pallet of missiles, a pallet of ammunition for your guns, like your shooting bullet guns that go on the helicopters, and you can have a fuel blivet with 500,000 pounds of fuel that can get dropped off literally in the middle of nowhere, and then you have a forward arming and refueling point. It's not hard to do. It's
Really.
super simple. Oh, super simple to do. We do it all the freaking time. The Air Force does it, the Army does it, the Navy does it. Everybody does it. They have these places. If the tyranny of distance is a thing, you don't need an airport. You need a place that's flat enough, that's big enough for a school bus that you can land an HH-60. You need a hose and a fuel blivet, and you can refuel that helicopter. So I had this conversation with somebody that was bringing up the same points. You're like, oh, well, they have to go to an airport. No, they don't. Absolutely not.
Huh?
They're like, well, you need so many people to do that. No, you don't. You need two pilots, two backenders, two shooters, one guy on the ground that can refuel a helicopter. That's
And
5 dudes.
pilots are trained in hot fueling too, so it's not
Yeah.
out of the realm of possibility that
No,
they knew how to hot fuel their aircraft while they
bro,
were still under rotor.
we've done this all the time. Every single dork rescue pilot, brand new lieutenant that's working, that used to be the 58th Rescue Squad. I think they were the 66th Rescue Squadron here was the helicopter squadron. It's one of the first things you do. You take hot fuel all the time. It's not that hard once you've done it a time or two. So what do you do if you have unlimited money and you're MBS and Adnan Khashoggi? What do? You're like, oh, I need a military pilot who knows how to hot fuel. How much money will you take to do this? You're going to fly a mission. You're not going to ever ask questions again. I'm going to give you $10 million. Okay, done.
So,
And,
Michael, okay, so we see that there are pictures of spent rounds, right?
uh-huh.
So, and he doesn't have any GSR on him at all, correct?
Not in the autopsy. And again, I'm quoting the autopsy report.
So, if he would have shot rounds, right? If he would have physically shot rounds off, there would be, I mean, you would think in 1,000 of them, right?
Hmm.
I allegedly, I do not believe this, and I will say it till the cows come home. I do not believe he shot a single round off.
Right.
Um, Especially because of, the fact that there's, no evidence of gunshot residue. I mean, that
Hmm.
stuff, that's like, CSI #1 that you look for when you have guns. So,
Hmm.
but where did those spent rounds come from? I mean, those rounds come out of the gun. They're hot to the touch, correct? They don't.
Sure. Oh yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, were there any evidence around the room that the round burned, like maybe you drop a cigarette on the carpet, right? It's
Right.
not going to stay hot for long, but I mean, it's going to melt
Right.
into that carpet. That carpet's not, it's vulnerable to those type of things. So,
Right.
I mean, like those are the questions. I don't think that this investigation was handled, and I think that people were paid off. Allegedly, I believe that they were told, listen, you're going to do the most minimal amount of work on this. We got our guy. This is who we're going to rubber stamp it on, and but those rounds had to come from somewhere, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Or is it
And
possible they were just dropped and made it to look like? I mean, were any of the guns? Did any of the guns from any of the evidence that we've seen? Did any of them still have a round in it?
yeah, there were some that were still loaded. With typically it was so it's 223 or 5.56 ammunition, whatever. So it's like your standard NATO 5.56 round, like an AR-15 fires a 5.56 bullet, or it's called 223 in the civilian world, like .223 or 5.56, depending on what measurement you're using. They did still have plenty of rounds loaded. There were plenty of guns that still had full magazines. A lot of those pictures that I showed you were loaded and ready to go. He just never got to those guns, which makes even less sense because of the amount of rounds that were fired out of that building. Like that's not 1,000 rounds of ammunition. That's not 1,000
No.
rounds of spent casings that are there on the floor. But if you really start thinking about this and like what logically makes sense, the path that we're walking down here is that it logically makes sense that this scene was set up. And the other thing that you have to think about is there's a little something called Hanlon's razor, and you assume incompetence before you assume malicious intent. And this plays perfectly into Hanlon's razor because the people that are setting this up are still people, and people are still fucking retarded. So
Yeah.
when you start looking at this thing, right? Like the people that are there, they're like, okay, cool. So at 3:45, there's a self-inflicted gunshot wound, right? So at 3:45, we kill Stephen Paddock. At 4 o'clock, we've got to make sure that nobody else can get into this place. So what do? You send some people to his room to change the locks on his doors, but they couldn't figure it out. So it took them 18 minutes to do it. So they couldn't figure out room 133 and 134 how to get those locks to change. Then you have two Hispanic women that you thought were going to be patsies for him, but one of them ends up getting away and goes and tries to warn people because she knows what's going on. She goes down to the concert and she starts warning people. At this time, they're setting the room up. There's two blood pools because where he was shot initially probably didn't go the way that they planned it. So they had to move him over to stage his body on top of that rifle. So
Right.
that's why there are two separate blood pools. Well, then you go, okay, well, there's got to be rounds here, right? Well, the people that, and this is just simple stuff, man. The people that are on the plane, like there was probably in the mission planning for this bad boy, there was no clear, like, hey guys, you can only fire this many rounds. Let's say that there were dudes on those helicopters, that there were multiple shooters. Sure, a couple of rounds probably came from those rooms in order to make it seem like it was correct. A couple of those shell casings were real, but really what they did is they took a bunch of other shell casings and they just threw those bad boys down on the ground. They're like, okay, we're good. That's why the round counts don't match. And that's why there weren't that many shell casings in the room as opposed to how many rounds were actually fired, which is over 1,000. So as you walk,
What's the final number of rounds? Do we have?
like
Is
a
it there?
1,060, like I can get you the actual number here. Let me find it.
Okay. Is that room okay? And just to feed my curiosity a little bit, is that room? Can you go to that room today? Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they're renting it out, but yeah, I mean it's definitely like it still exists. It's just room 130 133 and 134 on the 31st floor of Mandalay Bay.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
I'm getting the total amount of rounds, but I want to say it's 1,060. I think it was 1,000 like 1,060 rounds. So 1,060 rounds was estimated of
and
how many
that's a
were shot.
pretty nice round number, you know.
Right.
And
I'm
so
sorry,
okay,
1,058 rounds. So
or
1,058 rounds.
1,058 rounds.
You know how many 30 round magazines, even 60 round magazines that is?
I have no idea off the top of my head now. So yeah, I mean, you do the math on it.
Right, exactly. So that's like I'm not doing math in public. I don't care enough to. But that's how many times that you would have to, and then again, like how many weapons? 30 weapons, right? So you're like, you know what? Let me just do this math. So let's assume that they were all 60 round magazines, but they
Okay.
weren't. So let's assume that we had 1,058 rounds, 1,058 rounds out of 30, we'll call it 30 weapons. So that's 35. What am I dividing here by? 1,000 rounds. So that's 35 rounds per weapon. So he would have to fire at a constant rate. He would have to fire 35 rounds at a minimum per weapon. And that means that some of those magazines that he had, which were 30 round magazines, did not have that total thing. He'd have to, and he didn't use all the weapons. He'd have to go through every single one of those weapons at 35 rounds per weapon in order to fire 1,058 rounds.
Okay.
That did not happen.
Okay. So strike. Yeah, that's no, not in no way, shape, or form did that happen.
Because and again, none of the facts of the matter, the round count, the rate of fire, none of that stuff supports 30 different weapons and 1,058 total rounds. None of it does. There would have to be that natural delay. The attack didn't take place for that long. I want to say it took place over 16 minutes from 10:06 to 10:22. None of that makes sense. There were not 1,058 rounds of shell casings in the room. Like 1,000 rounds is a shit ton of ammunition. That was not correct.
And from all of the how what was alleged that what was all the different round styles that he used? I mean,
7.62. Yeah, so there were eight 308 7.62 caliber rounds from two AR style rifles. Those are more like a 308 is like your sniper rifle, like it's a 7.62 size round, but it was from a 308. So the round count breaks down to be 1,049 223 or 5.56 caliber rounds from 12 AR-15 style rifles. So 1,049 rounds came out of 12 rifles. Let's just do the math on that. So 1,049 divided by 12. He shot 87 rounds from each one of those rifles. He then shot eight 7.62 caliber rounds from two AR-10 style platforms. So he fired eight more rounds for whatever reason of 7.62 and well 308 or 7.62 depending on what measurement system you're using there out of a different AR-10 platform. That
and
makes zero sense. So
yeah,
we're talking
zero
about, and
cent.
again, 87. So, and again, not every single AR-15 had a 60 round magazine. He had no 100 round drums. He had 30 and 60 round magazines, sometimes doubled up. But even if you had those magazines doubled up, remember I talked about the little clip device that would take two
Sure.
30 round magazines and put them together. That's still only 60 rounds. And then he's switching to another platform and switching to another platform.
And so these guns are getting you're firing. Okay, so let's just say, for a point of argument, you're firing this gun, right? You're continuous fire, continuous fire, continuous fire. Even the best operator, that gun is going to have some type of fault to it at some point, right?
With
I
a
mean,
bump stock on it, yes. The way with a bump stock, you are going to have like again, you can find a million videos. Bump stocks do not fire and they cause malfunctions because again, you're forcing the weapon to operate in a way that it's not designed to operate.
sure.
There is absolutely no way that he's just ripping off full automatic at a completely stable rate of fire. Like again, you can hear in any one of these videos, go to James Cullen's videos, go to Ian Carroll's videos, they talk about the rate of fire and the sustained cyclic rate of fire.
Right.
It is exactly how a squad automatic weapon sounds. A weapon that is manufactured and designed to fire at a single cyclic rate of fire. I want to say it's like 800 rounds per minute, or not. I'd have to look at that. I think it's like 8,000 rounds per minute.
And
My,
obviously, you can
people are
get
gonna get
those
mad at me.
off of the black market, but they're not commercially available, correct?
No, they're not commercially available. Yeah, but I mean, you can still get an automatic machine gun. You just have to go through like the hoops of the government and to get an automatic machine gun.
Yeah, you
But
have to have like a actual like a automatic firing permit or something,
all
correct?
kinds of stuff, right? Yeah, like it's crazy. But I mean, again, if we're talking about unlimited money here, it ain't that hard to get, homie. Like you can right now, you can go down to, I don't want to. I actually know the guy that runs this range that just popped into my head. So there are shooting range. I don't want to put him out there on this,
Sure, yeah,
but
obviously.
you can go down in Las Vegas right now. If I wanted to go down and shoot a fully automatic machine gun from a helicopter, as a matter of fact, you can do that here in Vegas right now. I could drive down and I could get on a helicopter and I could go fire, or I could shoot from Humvee, or I could shoot any number of other things. There are places that do this all the time. Like the weapons are ubiquitous; they're easy to come by. Um,
So we
and
say
again,
that does Saudi have okay, so do any of the Saudis, is there any connection into the Route 91 festival itself? Like did they funnel any money into it? Did they, is there anything that they put on that for that festival, or is that festival, funded, by somebody else?
so nothing that we have in open reporting. The closest that we get is that everybody knows that George Soros is tied in very,
Oh God.
very tightly with the Saudis, with Adnan Khashoggi. Like those roads are well worn, right? Well, due to some SEC filings in August of 2017, George Soros just happened to have $42 million of put options on MGM, meaning that he hoped their stock value falls. That's a
Really?
we that's a weird thing to do. Like what a smart investor George Soros is to put basically a short squeeze on the MGM in August prior to the Route 91 concert festival.
Right. Yeah,
And then
that's
he hundreds of millions of dollars off that bet and he ended up getting it
so he put 42 million into
in short
basically.
calls and
And
puts.
how does one go about doing that? Like, I mean, I
Oh,
mean,
you can do it on Robinhood now.
really?
There's oh yeah, there's marginal betting that you can like I can go on my Robinhood app or on my Coinbase app right now, and you can put a short call in on anything you want. Like they
You just
started,
say, oh, I think this company is something, I think
yeah.
that they're gonna lose money.
Yeah, you can do the same thing in the opposite too. Like you can put a long call on somebody. You can be like, "Hey, I know that this stock." So the way that these bets work for people that aren't tracking. So if you're going to short a company, basically what you're doing is you're buying the stock from the person that has the stock right then, and you're betting that that stock is going to go down to the price that you think it's going to go down to. So you're basically buying it on credit. What you're doing is you're saying, I think, like, let's say a stock is at $100 and you think that the stock is going to go down to $50. You buy that stock for $50. What you're
Okay.
doing though is if that doesn't happen, then you owe the full price of the stock when that stock option comes due. So let's say it doesn't go down, your initial bill here. So you're basically like, and we'll do $150. If I'm saying that the stock is going to go down $50 for each one of those stock that I buy at $100 right now, I'm going to get the profit of basically what it went to. So I'm going to get $50 off of every single stock. But if it doesn't, then I
Uh,
owe the full value of that stock.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and it
I
works in opposite for a big call. You're basically saying, "Hey, I know for sure." Like people did this on Nvidia. Like it's like buying other stocks. When you put a long call in, this is how people made money in the retail GameStop thing. They were buying long options when they saw that the short squeeze was in. When they saw that people were trying to destroy GameStop, people were doing two things. They were buying to say, "No, GameStop is going to go up, and I'm going to bet money. I'm going to buy it at this, and then I'm going to sell the stock back to you at this inflated price." And therefore I'm going to make even more money than I did. And then other people were saying, well, GameStop is going to go. There's this huge short squeeze. Basically, the people that bet against GameStop are the people that lost the most money. The retail investors went and bought GameStop stock, which drove the price up, which brought all that money of people that were betting against it into the system. That's how that works. So
Oh
basically,
wow.
George Soros, in his he apparently has a crystal ball. And he somehow knew in August that he was going to bet $42 million that MGM stock was going to plummet for some reason. And then the Route 91 shooting happened. And that was an SEC filing. This isn't like some conjecture. Like he had to file with the SEC a $42 million purchase in August of 2017. This happened in October.
And I mean, I've never had $1 million or have been able to fathom what that looks like. But 42 of it to just say, I think that this company is. I mean, that's weird in and of itself. Are there any other strange connections
Man,
that
there are so many strange connections. So one of them is MGM Resorts International decided to approve a $1.1 billion share repurchase program at a net worth of $17.7 billion today. The program represented a significant portion of its current market cap. By the end of the week, 2 weeks after the terror attack, the MGM CEO, James Muro, had coolly divested himself of 80% of the shares that he owned in his own company. The divestment came just days before the ex-dividend of September 8th, 2017. Basically, what that means is that the MGM Resorts owner had a bunch of stock and dumped it all, dumped 80% of his stock in the place that he owned in September of 2017.
well, that's irresponsible. I mean,
Wow.
especially for the if you're like you're printing money at these places, basically.
Yep.
I mean, why?
So the other thing that happened is some of the other crazy things that are crazy connections here. So the Bellagio, Luxor, New York, Mirage, and MGM Grand, those are all the ones that are on the south end of the strip. They're all owned by MGM. Every single one of
Okay.
those resort security made 911 calls to report shootings, and those are sports at those resorts, despite MGM denying that ever happened. So basically, MGM put a gag order on the entire thing, um, like uh, the entire release of information. There was even a single lawsuit, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So they put a gag order on everything. They won't release the 911 tapes. They denied that anything ever happened. Jennifer Tagliati and Roger Kennis were the two people that were denied a settlement over the thing. MGM basically organized their lawyers, denied them exculpatory information or information that could help their case, which is illegal, and it ended up standing, and they denied them a settlement. I think the Marine, Roger Canis, was actually the only one. He ended up being paid an unspecified amount. He was the only victim that was ever paid out. MGM and all of their properties not only withheld information to include security footage that could have proven or disproven any one of these conspiracy theories, they completely put a gag order on it to protect themselves. And
Really?
oh yeah, and no one was ever paid out. I believe Roger Kennis was the only one. There's a pretty good video on it. I'm trying to find the one thing. Oh yeah, so let's talk about where is that guy's name? I don't want to say it incorrectly. So Josh Green, that's the guy that I want to talk about. So Josh Green was the police chief here in Vegas that investigated this shooting. You don't recognize Josh Green's name, but you recognize the next thing that he was involved in. Do you know you know where Josh Green moved after he left Las Vegas? Hawaii. Do you know what the
Oh,
next, do you know what the next investigation was that he ran?
oh, Nancy Pelosi space lasers?
The Lahaina fires.
Yeah.
Same dude.
Oh God.
How weird that the largest mass shooting in American history, we lost 60 people during that event. And the next thing that he runs is the Lahaina fires.
One of the most devastating fires. I mean,
And
that.
nothing that was blue burned.
Wow.
That's crazy. Isn't that crazy that things just went up in smoke except for rich people's houses like Barack Obama and Oprah Winfrey, and nothing that was blue to include like trash cans and cars ever burned? That's
It,
crazy.
wait. So he was elected, correct? Like the people
He
they
was.
wanted him
He
allegedly.
allegedly. I don't know if that's an elected position. I think chief of police, I think it's an appointed position. I'd have to actually do the research and see what that is. I don't know how they elect their police chiefs down there. But that was the other thing, is that Josh Green just amazingly runs this investigation and does so well that he ends up going to the Lahaina fires, and that's his very next that's his
And that,
his
okay, and
very
so
next investigation.
that's Lahaina fires was last year, correct, or 2023?
Man, this news cycle is so crazy. I'd have to Google it. I think it was 2023. Um,
I mean, that's a significant amount of time. That's enough time for people to ask questions. I mean, if you botch that investigation, what would make you even qualified for,
right.
Hawaii?
Yeah, I'm grokking it right now, so I'll tell you when
Sure,
that was
yeah,
because I can't
absolutely,
pull it
man.
up off the top of my head.
I love
Yeah,
Grok.
but yeah, oh yeah, Grok is objectively better. Yeah, 2023. Ignited on August 8th. The main blaze in Lahaina starting around 2:55 p.m.
That span of time. I mean, it's just this is all very very strange, and I know it's all speculative and everything. The other thing that gets brought up a bunch whenever you Google this, right, is you have people say that people were shot, and you
Mhm.
know, um, many respects to the deceased. I mean, this was
Mhm.
a terrible tragedy. I can't say how many times. I mean, this is a terrible tragedy. And to think that, government or people in the government or, I mean, even if they weren't involved, just on the cover up, just with how many questions that can be asked about it,
Mhm.
I mean, there shouldn't be a person out there that has any doubt that the narrative isn't correct here.
Mhm.
I hear people were shot through the top of the head and then down, right?
Yeah.
Then
So
the
yeah.
angle wouldn't have matched.
Well, it would match if it came from a helicopter.
This is very true, especially at the altitudes where you see those
Mhm.
those muzzle flashes.
Yeah, and I got the guy's name wrong. It wasn't Josh Green. His name was John Pelletier. So John
John
Pelletier,
Pelletier. Okay.
he
We'll
got to the
correct
Maui
that.
Police Department December of 2021. Before that, he had a 22-year career with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
But did he go? And so he gets like out of Las Vegas, right, and then
Hmm.
goes directly there. He doesn't
Yeah.
make like a pit stop or
Nope.
anything anywhere else.
No.
Weird.
Yeah. Right. Just immediately go, hey, I'm going to Hawaii, 22-year history here in Vegas. I'm just going to go to Hawaii. And then magically 2 years after he's there, 2021, 2023, the Lahaina fires kick
Oh,
off.
so somebody
Crazy.
put him there.
Right. Right. Yeah, but that's like, and again, nothing makes sense. And it's funny that the more that, like, again, stop putting dots up on the wall, and I'd stop connecting them like Charlie Day and be, who's Pepe Sylvia? Who's Pepe Sylvia? But as you look at these things, like the wound patterns of people that were injured, a lot of the wound patterns don't make any sense. A lot of the places that they got shot or they got killed doesn't make any sense. A lot of the things that people are reporting, it doesn't make sense with the official narrative, and it seems to support all these other wild conspiracy things, like multiple teams of shooters, people shooting from helicopters, people shooting from automatic weapons, people reporting small teams of people running around. There's the Adnan Khashoggi, Epstein Soros combo that they seem to be involved in every tragedy in American life. And here they are again. Again, if you'd stop putting dots up on the wall, I would stop connecting the dots. But you guys are giving me too much freaking ammo in order to like figure this thing out. Like if it was just easy and you explain it, you're like, here's the reason why we think you did it. Here's the video from these 8 other properties that can provide you the information that you want. And there's not 10 hours of 911 calls and hundreds of reports across the city of all of these other things that are all corroborated. Like when you look at that Vegas shooting map, all of the reports are saying the same thing in real time, disassociated from one another.
Right.
Like if
Right.
somebody calls you a horse once, you punch him in the nose. If somebody calls you a horse twice, maybe you think about getting a saddle.
Sure.
So like one call of people, men in tactical gear running around or active shooters in different locations or seeing helicopters. If you get one report of that, sure, it might be some crazy person. If you get two, maybe you should look at it. When you get 500, 900 911 calls in 10 hours of different parts of the city all saying the same thing independent of one another, come on, man. What do you expect me to believe here?
Yeah, I mean, I have trouble really believing in it. I mean, that's the other thing too. Once you have, but so many strikes against you,
Hmm.
then the map does. There was also a website that I heard somebody talking about that actually had like compiled all of the 911 calls and like their locations and everything that you could,
No,
click
that's
on and listen to.
That's the Vegas shooting map. Like right now, I mean, I can bring this up. I mean, this is 911 call number 798. CVS employee reports people and shooting running. If I bring this one up, 911 call number 680, reports of shots at Miracle Mile. Like Miracle Mile is nowhere near this thing. People were reporting shots all over the city. 911 call man asked how to pick up daughter who attended concert. 911 call, man reports injured man. Like you can go all the way over. Like all of these 911 calls are there. There's 911 calls from everywhere in the city. There's other areas of interest that are on here. Like if you go to that Las Vegas shooting map, I mean, it would take you forever to get through.
And
Um,
so the manpower that would take to investigate every single one of those things. I mean,
mhm.
That's an incredible. What's the Las Vegas Police Department? If you know off the top of your head, but you don't worry about it. But I mean, that's a pretty big for 28 square miles.
Hmm.
I mean, that's like a sheriff's department around here, right? And so
Right.
they're
Yeah.
not like,
Well, the
you
Vegas metro area, I mean, it is pretty populated, right? And there's actually like two or three different. So you've got Henderson, which is a large city center that's down
okay,
there. Henderson has its own police force. There's actually a district of Las Vegas called North Las Vegas.
okay,
It's actually typically pretty violent. They have their own police, fire, and municipality.
okay.
So the North Las Vegas and then Las Vegas Metro. There's also sheriffs, and I want to like like I think all the big ones have like all the alphabet
Oh, they
boys. They're
definitely have a
also,
field office out
oh
there.
yeah,
FBI, DEA, CIA.
oh yeah.
All of the three-letter agencies. I'm sure have
Well,
some
that, and
type
then you
of.
start including Nellis Air Force Base proper. The Department of Energy is huge out here. Like there is a large footprint for the Department of Energy, and a lot of those people that work up at Groom Lake and all these other associated military ranges, like there's Nellis and there's Creech. There's those two bases. Nellis is in Vegas, but Creech is like 45 minutes north of Las Vegas proper. It's probably like 25 minutes away from my house up here in the Northwest. But Creech has a large drone presence as well. So when you start talking about including all of those cats and dogs that would work on Nellis Air Force Base or at Creech or in the area, like the resources are actually pretty big. But when you start to like, if you're just talking about, um, you know, um, just law enforcement personnel, like they have plenty of resources, especially again, like when you look at this, like the FBI was brought in to investigate this. The FBI was one of the, think of the manpower that the FBI has that they can investigate all of
Did
these
they
things.
did they investigate any one of those ancillary shootings that people say?
There are so many. It's like 911. I'm looking through these 911 calls now. 911 call number 524. Luxor Security hiding says gunfire was from Mandalay Bay. So that's at the Luxor. You actually can't see Mandalay Bay from where this call was. Like as you go through this map, like I'm telling you, it's absolutely crazy, like absolutely insane. And they all link to YouTube videos. You can listen to every single 911 call, and some of them like really far away, um, like really far away from the actual incident site. You're like, well, how is somebody up here reporting shoot? Like there'd be no way. I'm trying to find one of them specifically. Yeah, woman sees man hiding in parking structure. Outside Mirage, shots fired. The Mirage is nowhere near Mandalay Bay. That is
Right.
that is north of the Bellagio, my dude. Like we're talking about blocks away on the strip in a loud, crowded environment.
A
Shots
lot of
fired,
people, a lot of bustling on go. I mean, even
dude. Yeah,
I mean, it's so. I mean, one could definitely think, you could be at the total other end of the city, and you don't know that this is happening
no.
until you know
Till the
after
news reports
after
hit.
it's done. Yeah, until a news
Yeah,
reports it, or until you see it on like a Facebook or something like that.
yeah.
So that's wild. And then
Yeah, so like 911 call. Man reports injured at air hangars by Las Vegas Jet, and that's by Thrive Aviation. Man reporting medical response. These are all down by where Sunset Aviation used to be, down by there. The three 911 calls that came down from near the helicopter tours place. Injured woman at Sundance Helicopters. Man's second call reporting girlfriend heard shots and Sundance was on lockdown. They actually put Sundance Helicopters on lockdown. This man ends up being an off-duty policeman. His girlfriend worked at Sundance. Man reports there's a shooter at the helicopter spot, like at the actual place. That the Sundance Helicopters, like to look here, Sundance Helicopters is not only shielded, so it's not only if I'm looking here, that's Mandalay Bay. So it's not only shielded by three huge hangars. You cannot visualize. You could probably see the top of Mandalay Bay, maybe. Um,
yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and they had a bunch of A stars that they flew.
right.
So I mean, they have doors on them, and that is an incredibly stable platform. I mean,
Yep. Yeah, but if you're looking from the Sundance helicopter spot, so not only can you not see Mandalay Bay, you might be able to see it peeking out over the top, but there's a huge tarmac. There's a lot of space in between. You would not be able to hear the gunshots. And again, they're shielded. The direction of fire is actually away. Like Mandalay Bay is in kind of like a little, it's got like three little things, right? The way that this faced, it's a way that acoustics from gunfire works. Shooting out of that window away from you, and this place is, if I had to estimate, I don't know, 1,000 meters away to the airport. Like that is quite a long way away. It's like 3 city
Oh
blocks.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
I mean, from Mandalay Bay Avenue, Hacienda Avenue down to Russell. I work right down in that area. That's where Allegiant Stadium is now. I mean,
Okay.
dude, on 15, that's an entire exit. So they are entire exit south, and that's probably it's more than a mile, and then straight line direction from there. And they're reporting that there's an active shooter at their place. There is absolutely no way that you mistake an active shooter for in your area for something that is 1,000 meters away and shielded both by cover and concealment. So
I mean,
you can't.
but they're saying that they put the place on lockdown. So that
Yeah,
means that has to funnel through. That's not just one person that
no.
says, "Oh, I'm locking everything down." That, I mean, if they were to lock down where I work right now, I mean, that's
Hmm.
going to go through 5 hands that I know.
Oh yeah.
That's going to make that decision. And
Well,
so,
and when you're like, and again, you always want to trust your source, right? But this guy, the guy that called 911 twice for his girlfriend, that guy was a cop. It wasn't like he was just some worked up dude that's like, oh, they're on lockdown. It wasn't like he was using words that he didn't know what they meant. He knew
didn't he
exactly
give
what
his
that meant.
badge number to the 911?
We'd have to listen to the phone call. I'm not sure. I
I
mean,
thought,
he was later identified. Like he identified
right,
himself
right.
right away
Yeah.
on the 911 call. Is like, hey, I'm an off-duty policeman. My girlfriend works down at Sundance. I'm telling you that they put the building on lockdown. So he knows exactly what lockdown is. He knows exactly what that means. He knows what an active shooter event is. He is not some babe in the woods. He was communicating directly to another, like 911 dispatchers or law enforcement personnel, or at least assistance personnel. Like those two speak the same language. So there's
And I
no
mean,
way that he would use the word lockdown if he didn't mean they're locked down because of an active shooter. He said the words active shooter and lockdown.
well, and so we have to go through recurrent GA security training
Hmm.
as part of, like, I have a certificate right now that's from AOPA, the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. They run the training in conjunction with law enforcement agencies and the FAA and the
Hmm.
TSA. But I actually have to go through a recurrency training that basically says, okay, this is what you're supposed to look for, and I can't remember what the yearly time on that is, but
Hmm.
um, just for me to work, just for me to turn wrenches on airplanes, I'm not in any other safety position than that. But for
Hmm.
me to do that, I have to have this certificate that says, okay, you know, we've complied with the general aviation mandates. And
Hmm.
there's a whole section in there that talks about, the proper steps on what a lockdown of a facility looks
And
like.
anti-hijacking and how to stop terror, like all that stuff is included.
And
We used to
NTSB,
do the same
if
thing.
like if we were to do a lock, see, this is the other crazy part that kind of ticks me off about this. If we were to go through an actual lockdown, right? Not a simulated, not like a training thing, right? If we were to go through a hard lockdown, right, where we declared it, and it's just like declaring an emergency in an airplane, there
Hmm.
would be, I mean, a ton of people that would come in and investigate it, because all they want to do is find out who's making the reports,
Hmm.
who's talking about the things. Was this a validated report, and how was it resolved?
Right.
I mean, the NTSB would come in, the FAA would come in. Oh, you have the
I have
uh,
the 911 call. This is very interesting. We can listen to the one with the guy if you want, but this is really, really interesting. So this is
okay, yeah, I want to
down.
hear this one.
Yeah, so this one is down. So this is a couple report men trying to hide and changing their clothes to talk about this. This is about a block and a half away from the actual shooting. This is a 911 call.
Is your audio ported over? Yeah, I'm not able to hear it. I can
Oh,
see
you
it
can't hear it?
ticking.
Hold on, let me look.
Yeah, I can see it ticking.
Okay, hold on, let me look. Stop the screen sharing and make sure that my share sound. Oh, got him. Here we go, brother. All right, so we should be able to see it here.
The street from Mandalay Bay by where the shooting was.
You got it
There's
now?
two people that look like suspects that were shooters that have just changed
Can you hear that now?
I can, yes.
Okay.
clothes that we can see by the window.
Okay, where are you
I
at?
think it's the Oasis apartment complex.
Okay, hold on one second, okay? I'm going to let them know, okay? We have multiple calls.
Okay.
What is the exact address?
We can see them from the window. What's your address here?
Yeah, so she's talking. She continues to talk about watching these people chain clothes. We'll go to the one call from Sundance where the guy is reporting the active shooter. Let me find Sundance here. This map, I'm telling you, this map is crazy. Like the more that you go into this, the more that you're just like, I don't even know what's going on here. So let's go shooting at woman. Okay, so this is the lockdown call, and this is a YouTube video.
Okay.
So
And
I
after
will.
after we finish up here, if you wouldn't mind sharing the link to that over to
Oh,
me,
I got you.
I definitely will put that in the show notes.
Yeah, I got you. It is crazy, man. Like if you want to spend some time and just go through it and just be like, holy crap. So this is call 357 as listed in all of the documentation. This is the call from the off-duty policeman saying that his girlfriend is now on lockdown. This is the second 911 call that I made.
Okay.
2017, 23:10 and 28 seconds.
911 emergency, Yates 15960. Do you need police, fire, or medical?
Yes, hi. It's about the active shooter situation down
Yes,
on the
sir.
strip.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so I need to report that Sundance Helicopters, my
Yes.
girlfriend works there. She called me.
Yes.
She's a supervisor there.
Yes.
They're all on lockdown currently in there.
Yes, where are
And
they
we don't-
located?
They're at Sundance Helicopters. It's on South.
I know, but where are they located inside?
They're in the building. They've locked down the entire building. So
Do you know how many subjects are in there?
there are several. I don't know what a head count, but there's several.
Okay, and she's a supervisor?
She's the supervisor, yes. I wanted to call and report that because I know I've been watching the news. They're
Yes,
trying to
sir. Do you
evacuate.
know if there's any victims where she's at?
There's no, to my knowledge, there's no victims.
And what is the address there at Sundance Helicopters?
I believe it's 5546 Haven Street, but I don't
Haven,
know for sure.
Haven, Haven?
Haven, yes.
Okay. And are they're barricaded there?
Yeah, they went on lockdown. They have all the lights shut off, and they're all hiding in parts of the building. And I wanted to call because they're talking. I have my girlfriend on the other line, on my other phone, and I don't know. They're talking about like trying to like move, and I don't know if they should stay there locked down or if they
At
should
this
move.
time, if they feel safe where they are, they need to stay where they are.
So it goes on with more stuff there, but that was the second call that he made, and they were, I mean, a hard lockdown. Like they were done. Like I don't believe they
do
stopped.
that for anything, man.
No,
I mean,
I don't believe the
oversight
flights.
that comes.
Yeah, I don't believe the flights got shut down. I got to see if they actually ever shut down the flights going in and out of there because it happened so quickly. I'm not sure if they actually stopped flights in and out, but man, complete lockdown. I'm telling you that Vegas shooting map, I will put it in the chat for you right now. But dude, there's 10 hours of those sorts of calls. Like it's just absolutely insane. It just doesn't.
That's incredible, man.
It don't make no gosh dang sense here,
It
and
doesn't.
I will.
So how long have you been researching this? I mean, has it been like an off and on thing? I mean, I know you say you have an affinity for Vegas.
I do, yeah. So, I have an addictive personality. That's why I had to stop drinking. Best
Sure.
decision I've ever made in my life. But you know what? Like when this happened, like I was connected here. I always made the joke, like Vegas was the first duty assignment that I had because I lived in England, I lived in New Mexico, I lived in DC, I lived in San Antonio, I've lived in the Pacific Northwest. I got to live in a lot of cool places, and Vegas was the first place that I ever felt like home. And I had those connections through the gym that I worked at and with friends, and I still talk to people here. Like when this happened, like, I mean, I felt like this was an attack on a place that I lived. So it was immediately something that I was like, hey, and then really that 2000, really when I started, no kidding, getting in, like so many other Americans, like COVID really put me off to the races with conspiracy theories and knowing that the government, like I always had it in my head, like, hey, some of these things aren't right.
Sure.
And then like so many other Americans, I watched what happened during COVID and I was just completely sure that just nothing was the truth. And really after 2017, I started looking at it, like 2019 happened and I really started just being like, none of this makes sense. And I was aware of some of the other investigations that were happening. I talked to people, I have friends in law enforcement that were here, that were in the room, that knew the investigators, that knew the people. I'm still very connected with 3 or 4 local police officers that have worked here in Vegas for 20 years at this point. Some of them have differing opinions on this, like the guys that went into the room and I don't want to, because I do have personal relationships with them, I don't want to even parrot what they say, but man, that it ranges. It ranges from like, no, dude, I saw it and I think everything like it's a tragedy. And yeah, there's a lot of questions out there, but I don't think that there's anything more to it. And then I have friends that are on the complete other side of the spectrum. They're like,
Sure.
dude, I've seen all of these things and none of it makes sense. So I have friends with differing opinions. But, ever since, probably 2022 is when, stuff started breaking and some more stuff got put out there. And I started, I had a conversation with my friend in 2022 where I really started like going super deep into this. Like none of this makes sense. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And then Brandon and I are close friends. The guys that I Came with Fire, which is a great podcast if you guys aren't listening to it. Brandon and Chris, awesome dudes. And both of them were just like, hey man, like we know that you're into this. Like you want to brush up on your notes and come on and drop this episode. And I was like, yeah, homie, like we had a great talk. So go check it out over on their Rumble. But man, like it's just a thing. Like, man, I chose to retire here. I could have retired anywhere in the world that I wanted to, and I picked Vegas because I love this town. I love these people. Like everybody has like this weird view of what Vegas is. And, some people just know it from going there and partying, and what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas and stuff. But man, when you live here, it's completely different. This town is amazing. The people that live here are absolutely insane. Just how great they are to one another. It's like a transient city. So it's, a lot of people will move here and try to make it here and they won't, and they move away and then they move back. And, there's a joke about you can't say you're a Vegas native until you've lived here for 5 summers. Like you're not
Really?
allowed to say you're a local until you lived here for 5 summers and made it through. And
So it's a lot of transient going in and out.
yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, Vegas is an awesome city. People get enamored with it. They come out here and they try to, live here and make it work. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But man, that's one of the things that I actually love about it. Like it's just amazing. The community that we have, like the community that I live in, man. I know my neighbors. I talk to them. We say hi to each other. Like you see each other going out. Like everybody kind of stays in their same little neighborhoods and stuff. So the people that live in the Northwest, I see the same people at the gym as I see out at some of the brunch spots, as I see out at, hikes and stuff like that. It's amazing. Like it really is a small town that just happens to be America's playground in the middle of the desert. So I've always connected with Vegas, and obviously this story is one of those things. It's one of the biggest unanswered things that's ever happened in Vegas. And I don't say that lightly. Like the mob made Vegas happen. Like all of the things that happened in Vegas, like consider Vegas's history, right? Like the 5 families of the mob, this was basically a free fire zone, which people don't realize. Like the mobs, basically all the families like Kansas City, Youngstown, New York, Chicago, all these people basically agreed, the heads of all the mafia basically agreed that Vegas was going to be a free fire zone. You wanted, like, none of the families owned it. You could just go there and make money, and you guys could set up whatever you wanted there through prohibition and, the start of gambling and all that other stuff. Like Vegas has a rich history of some very shady things going on. So for me to say that this is probably the biggest event in Vegas's history in a conspiracy, like in a conspiracy or underworld sort of context, like I don't say that lightly. Like I'm aware of Vegas's history in those sort of things. And it's just something that still we have no answers. That FBI memo in 2023 answered 0 questions. We still have no idea why Stephen Paddock did it. We have no idea what's going on with his brother. From the security guard that disappeared and ended up showing back up on Ellen and then disappeared, to all the people that died in car accidents that dared say there was more than one shooter. Like it's crazy. It's just insane.
I mean, it's a wild conspiracy, man. And I hate to use that word to it. It gets struck down anywhere, but I mean that's the best way to describe it.
Mhm.
It's just a wild thing that happened, and it is. I can't say it enough how tragic it
Yeah.
is, and that people lost their lives. I mean,
Mhm.
any loss of life is a tragedy, and it shouldn't happen.
Right.
But I mean, in this matter, and the fact that you can, like you say, quit putting dots up.
Yeah.
If you
Quit
if you
leaving
could,
questions unanswered, and I'll stop answering the questions for you, because I can give you a pretty solid narrative of how this happened. It's just you don't like the story that I give you. But I had a good friend that did a lot of work. We've got a great episode over on One's Ready with our friend Matt Kubler. And Matt Kubler essentially he was a ATF, one of the, not ATF, but he was one of the air marshals. And then he did investigations for a long time. He went to high school with a man named Job Price. Job Price was a Navy SEAL Team 4 commander that allegedly committed suicide while he was deployed, except the facts don't speak to that. What it looks like is that the SEAL team killed their commander for a lot of
Really?
different for a lot of different reasons. We've got a two-part series over on One's Ready with Matt Kubler where he lays it out. Whenever I'm conducting a podcast, I try to go in and I try to be curious.
Okay.
I try to go in with a blank slate and I try to just really, ask be curious no matter what guest we're talking to, whether it's, we've had MMA legend Don Fry on, we've had the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force on, we've had a bunch of like big name, Greg Jackson, fight coach came on, we've had a bunch of Jason Ellis from Sirius XM, he's been on the podcast. We talk to a lot of different people, and I always just try to be curious. Whether you're a recruiter or whether you're an 18-year-old kid, I just try to be curious and really ask you a question because I think that's a good way to do it. I was curious with Matt, and I tried to go in with no preconceived notion or no, like I didn't want to go in with a cognitive bias. So I purposely didn't know anything about the case. Like I wasn't aware of any of the things that were going on. By the time that I got done with that second hour, I think we ended up recording for 3 total hours over the two podcasts. By the time I was done, I'm positive in saying that his SEAL team killed Joe Price, and then they hid the body, or they hid the evidence, and it's a cover up by the Navy. Like I can't say it any other way.
That, man, that is so wild. So
Dude,
you have a podcast.
I do, yeah. So the One's Ready podcast we started in 2019. It was just before COVID. It was like November of 2019, right? And there was at the time there were 4 special operators. There were 3 of us now, and we're in the Air Force. And just like I had to start off by explaining like what a pararescueman does and some of our history, a lot of people out there have no idea what it is the Air Force. Like people don't even know that the Air Force has special operations. Like
Right.
we have teams that are on par and work with the SEALs and the Green Berets and the Rangers and the MARSOC Raiders and even a tier 1 unit. Like we have people like just like an Army has a tier 1 unit called the Delta Force. We have a tier 1 unit too that provides a very specific function to the DoD writ large, but people just don't understand about that. As you well know, the cohort of people that can get into the military right now, only 23% of people in America right now even qualify for military service for a number of different reasons. Well, inside that 23%, everybody's fighting for that same 23%. The SEALs, the Rangers, Green Berets, the Navy, the Marines, all these dudes are fighting for the same person, right? And by the way, we're also fighting for that same like law enforcement is fighting for that person and fire is fighting for that person and pilots are fighting for that person. You want that hard charging, self-initiating person that you can trust on to do very dangerous things, to be calm under pressure, right? We're all fighting for that same cohort of people. Well, we were joking and we were just like, listen, man, I was on a couple different platforms on the internet, Reddit and shadowspear.com and some of these other places, Instagram and Facebook, and people were asking us all the same questions. What does a PJ do? What does a combat controller do? What's it like when you're deployed? Can you have a family? What's selection like? What does it take to get through it? What's the pipeline like? What should I expect? How should I prepare? And we were kind of joking. We're like, what we should do? There's more podcasts than there are people right now.
Sure.
We should just start a podcast. We should just answer all the questions, get them out there, and then we'll never have to answer them again because none of it's secret. Like while the training is extremely hard and it's extremely selective, excuse me, it's not secret. I can tell you everything that you're going to do. If you think about it, we treat it like it's the NFL Combine. Are the NFL Combine events secret? Absolutely not. You're going to do a 225 pound bench press. You're going to do a 40-yard dash. You're going to do a Wonderlic test. You're going to do the Indiana drill. You're going to do footwork. You're going to do throwing drills if you're a quarterback. You're going to run the 5x5 if you're a receiver. And we want you to prepare and throw your A game. We want you to be the best that you can possibly be at that selection or at that event so that we can pick you up. So that's how we structured the podcast, and we're about to record episode 500. We've been going for almost,
dude, awesome.
I know, we've been going for almost 6 years now. There's a ton of changes, and now the 3 of us are all retired. So Jared finally retired at the beginning of this year. Trent retired about a month after I did in January of 2024 is when I retired. He retired in February of 2024. And now we're just guys that are super plugged into the Air Force architecture. All of our friends are the guys that make these calls now. Like that's what you get for being in for 20 and 22 and 27 years respectively between the 3 of us. Is that all of our friends are the people that are caught like making the decision to do these changes, or they're making the decision to, change these things. And we just joke that we've become the official, unofficial podcast of the United States Air Force. And we help people prepare for these special operations career field. And really what we do is we scout like that 23% of people. We just want you to know what being a combat controller is. Like people don't know this, but for 10 years in GWOT, you are not allowed to leave. And this is all DoD services. You are not allowed to leave the wire to go out on a high risk mission unless you had a combat controller with you and there was a pararescue team that was ready to come get you. And people talk about the Air Force, they'll say Chair Force, and all the Air Force does is fly and they're soft, and the Marines and the Army are better. Well, I mean, the only thing I can present with you is data and facts. And unless you can call a pararescueman to come get you, you're not allowed to leave your base. That's a true statement. Unless you have a combat controller with you that can call in close air support from the United States Air Force, which is the best Air Force on the face of the planet, unless you have one of them with you, your mission's not going to get approved. That's a hard fact. When the Rangers get in trouble, when the SEALs get in trouble, when the Green Berets get in trouble, they call an Air Force team, and that's it. Like, that's just the fact, right?
Sure, absolutely.
I have never, I say this story, and this is not to bemoan my sister service friends in any way. Like, I think those guys are great. They're awesome. But it's very common. Like, you know, I worked a lot of my career, and other special forces teams would request having PJs, either myself or my team. When I became like one of those leaders, they would request to have a PJ on the team because it lowers your risk. In the military, everything's about risk. If you're going on a high risk mission, we need to figure out how to get that down to a moderate risk. And the way that you do that is you put a combat controller on the team that can save your life by calling in bombs on the enemy, danger close in a high stress environment, or you put a PJ on your team that can provide, you know, gold standard trauma medical care, technical rescue specialties, and the integration of air to ground. That's why you put PJs on the team. There are so many missions that went off that a SEAL commander or a Green Beret commander or a Ranger commander would be like, listen, I need you to come on my team. I need one PJ to come on my team because it lowers my risk. So you're going to come on my team. Okay. You know the amount of times in my career when I ever said I need one Army guy to come on my team to lower my risk? Zero. Not once. Not one time did I ever go, you know what I need to make this mission happen? Give me one SEAL, and the commander will approve it. You know how many times that a SEAL said I need one PJ? Shit tons. Shit ton times, right? So, but people don't know that. So that's our whole job is we get that information out there. We do in-person training events to help people train correctly, efficiently, and smartly in order to get into this thing. We give them basically, like, we hang our hat on being 5 things. We're open, we're honest, we're vulnerable, we're transparent, and we're accessible. Like, we want to be open to the conversation to help you do whatever it is that you want to do. We don't care who you are. We want to be as honest as we possibly can. We talk about good, bad, ugly, indifferent, all the bad parts. Like, you have to know the bad parts before you can make an informed decision. And we'll tell you the bad parts. Like, we'll tell you about the divorce rate. We'll tell you about the prevalence of alcoholism. We'll tell you about guys making bad decisions. And we'll tell you about all, like, the military is what the military is. You know what I mean? But you have to know those bad parts.
Sure.
You know,
Sure,
we want to be vulnerable. We want to tell you exactly who we are as people. Like, you should have a reason to listen to us. Like, you know, good, bad, or indifferent, you should get to know us as people. Like, we want to be vulnerable. We want to be transparent. Like, we're not here to recruit you. We're not owned by the Air Force. We do it on our own. We've never let anybody tell us what to say, and we refuse to. As a matter of fact, it probably has hurt us monetarily, to be quite frank with you. Like, if we would have just messaged for the Air Force, or we'd just been like, yeah, you can tell us what to say, maybe we'd be more monetized than we are, but we're okay with it.
Sure.
And then we want to be accessible. We don't farm anything out. If you DM that account, if you DM us over at One's Ready on Instagram, Peaches and I, because we all make fun of Trent. It's a running joke. Trent doesn't look at the DMs ever. He doesn't look at the comment section. He doesn't do shit. He's like, I don't care, whatever. He's like people DM like the inbox, and it'll be a question. It'll be a question for Trent, and we'll have to screenshot it and send it to him. And then it's still like 50-50 if he's going to reply to it. But like, if you DM us, like, Peaches and I you are going to talk to us. Like, you're going to get, like, we're going to talk to you. Like, we are going to help you with whatever you want. But it's been awesome, dude. Like, we have people that have graduated and put berets on, and, you know, there was a RAND study that came out that said, you know, something like 90% of ASPEC war candidates that we were their primary source of information. Like, it's pretty cool. Dude. Yeah.
Okay, so if I were just a regular guy off of the street, where would I find you at?
Yeah, so just if you just like Google One's Ready, so it's ONES Ready, so 2 separate words, One's and Ready. So basically where we got the name is at the start of every pool session. Like I told you, selection is very heavily pool based.
Sure.
The first thing that you do is underwaters. You do underwaters in the lanes of the pool. What you do for the instructors is you count off. So they'll be like, hey, there's 8 lanes. I want everybody to count off by 8s. And everybody goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then they're like, hey, get in the water. And then you get in the water and you go to your lane. If you're a 2, you go to lane 2. If you go to 3, you're a lane 3, and then you line up. Well, the first people that are ready to go are closest to the wall. And so the instructor can count the repetition he basically says one's ready, and then everybody says one sergeant, and they go, and that's how you start every single pool session. So that's where the names come from. But basically, if you go to onesready.com, if you go to our Instagram page, we're at Ones Ready across all social media platforms. So X, Instagram, Facebook, our website, where you can get a sweet piece of merch like make F-Spec War great again.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah, we got with the new hat that's been selling out. So the operation where we bombed Iran was called Midnight Hammer. We made a black on black Ones Ready hat. We called it the Midnight Hammer hat. It's been banging. But yeah, and we're on all podcast players. So YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, everywhere that you can listen. We're on all of it. So
Well, dude, thank you so much for doing this, man. This has been incredibly fun. I tell everybody at the end of this, I only do this. I don't care about any of the views. I don't care about, who watches it. I just care about making good friends with good people, man.
hell yeah,
And
brother.
I really appreciate you for doing this. Do you have any parting words for any of the guests?
No, man, I really appreciate it. I know you don't care about views, but I'll say this to you just like everybody else. So if I'm a guest on their podcast, I want this to be your biggest episode ever.
Oh,
So
hell yeah, dude.
get me the link when it drops, man. I'll put it out on all of my channels. I'll put it on my personal page as well. If you want to follow me at my personal page, it's Aaron_loves_America. Man, I'm an uncompromising conservative. I love this country, and that's what that page is about. So if you're a based individual like me, go ahead and follow me over at Aaron Loves America. Man, but we'll get it out there. I just want to say thanks for having me on and having the talk. This is obviously something I'm passionate about, and it's really cool to talk to somebody that's passionate about it too.
Well, dude, Aaron, thank you so much for flying with Ryan, bud. I really
Hell yeah.
appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a good flight that I didn't have to jump out of your aircraft because I got way more takeoffs than landings. So there you go.
Well, all right, brother, you take care. I really appreciate it, man.
Heck yeah. We'll see you next time.
All right, bye.
Out here.
All right, guys, that has been my episode with Mr. Aaron Love. Lot to unpack there. Lot that I'm gonna have to think about here over the next couple of weeks. But we'll put this out. We'll get it downloaded and get it clipped up for everybody. And just remember out there, if you're a regular pilot, or if you're thinking about becoming a pilot, just take your time. Don't rush it, and keep that blue side up. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.